Is it good? Okay. Hey, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, which we have now resolved. And so welcome to our January 14th Board of Aldermen meeting. And we will get started with a roll call.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Here.
Alderwoman Buse.
Here.
Alderwoman Patel.
Here.
Alderman Fader.
Here.
Alderman Hummel.
Here.
Alderman York. Mayor Harris.
Here.
City Manager Gibson.
Here.
City Attorney O'Keefe.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, before we get started, we have something fun to present. We have an amazing chief of police. I'm sure you all have met him. If you haven't, he's sitting in the back of the room right now, Chief Mark Smith, and he is celebrating an anniversary. And we are now going to recognize all of his great work and achievements over the past 25 years.
Right.
Can you believe all these people turned out just?
That's right. So I have a certificate here for Chief Smith, who's been with the city now for 25 years. He's ascended our ranks. His leadership in the police department's just been incredible. Appointed chief in 2020. We're very, very lucky to have him. I know a lot of you in the room are active residents that have probably had chances to interact with Chief in the past. And, we couldn't be more proud to have him here in Clayton. So congratulations, Chief, on 25 years, and I'm sure there are many more to come.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Now's the time in our agenda for public requests and petitions. So if anyone is here tonight to talk to us about anything that's not on our agenda, now is your opportunity to come talk to us. And no one's online. No one's got their hand up. Okay, very good. All right. So as you know, we've been considering something called the Big Bend overlay for quite some time. And as you also, I think, all know at this point, the city has received requests from Washington University and Concordia to withdraw the overlay as it is. And it was, the overlay was developed, again, as you know, in response to the institution's plan to develop the area as a joint athletic use. And while this process is going to be put on pause, I want to state that the use of an overlay for a project like this remains best practices and the best way to regulate such a development. The potential action to withdraw this in no way inhibits the potential for the project itself to at some point move forward, either under another overlay, this overlay, or something completely different. And before we get started on the actual business of this, I want to make a couple comments and allow some comments, and also will allow some comments from you all who've come tonight. First, I want to commend our city staff for their dedication to the process and also admiring, their expertise. Anna's not here tonight, but she's certainly, or is she sitting in the audience? No. Oh, there she is. Okay. Usually I might see you over here. And anyway, I want to make sure that they know how much we appreciate all their hard work and dedication and also their talents. And also thank the elected officials for all of the dedication to seeking robust input on this issue over the course of more than a year. And, again, of course, I want to recognize that you, our residents and businesses and the institutions themselves have engaged in a very active and consistent ongoing way for all of this time. And you should know that that engagement is truly valued and respected. So while we certainly support an effort by these institutions to step back and take a broader look at their options, I want to encourage them to continue their collaborative efforts, since the synergistic uses proposed with this plan do conform to our comprehensive plan just completed. And I also want to tell you that I'm encouraged by the notion that the city can now explore a lot of the things we learned during the process of developing this overlay and leveraging the substantial time that we've put into it, and capturing, some of the, again, the key learnings and the good things that can come out of it. And we can use those to improve our city as a whole, including things like tree canopy protections, dark sky lighting, and other things. So before we consider the request to withdraw, I want to offer the board also an opportunity to make any comments they wish to make. And to do that, I want to start with the ward that has been more of the focus of all this, which is Ward 1. So I would offer the senior alder from Ward 1 to go first and make any comments she would like, and then Rick, and then we will go around and do others as needed. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. And mostly thank you to all of you who are here tonight and have been at countless meetings over the last, I feel like it's been more than 18 months now since we first met on this topic. And so really do appreciate those that are online from wherever you are also joining us. I think through this process, we've had more learning about zoning than any of us ever expected, outside of Anna and David, than any of us expected to have. And I think a lot of really good ideas have been co-developed by residents and the staff, and ourselves as we work together, through conversations, visits to the site. I mean, I've walked around the site with many of you, where it's near your property and not. Visited with David just a couple weeks ago to get renewed sound readings along the border to inform the latest draft. And so I think through that process, we've had a lot of engagement and collaboration that has yielded some really wonderful ideas. So many good ideas, layering tree protections with transition zones, implementing dark sky international lighting standards, and many others. So the message that I have is that we won't abandon what we've learned through this process. I have received dozens of messages of support via email, phone call, and conversation on the street from residents and neighbors of the site and throughout the city. And it's definitely my intention to continue to look for opportunities to implement the learnings that we have had through this process. So thank you all.
Great, thank you. I would largely echo the mayor's comments and just note that the process has allowed me to get to know our neighbors and residents much better. And I appreciate those kinds of relationships that have been developed that hopefully will result in continued good communication between the city and its residents. I'm appreciative of all the individual participation that's gone on. It's been a tremendous amount of time and a burden for everyone involved. We're clearly aware of the values, concerns, and problems that potential development would cause, but even more so, I'm far more aware of the problems that already exist, and in the hope that we can do something about that as we go forward. I echo Becky's comments that the documentation that we have obtained through all of this can and should be used regarding any potential new uses that are there. And then finally, I'd note that it's obviously been a challenge to create rules for a largely unused site that its intended or proposed use was largely inconsistent with all of the neighboring uses. And so it's clear that we can probably make better decisions if we have a specific plan to look at as we go forward, or when it's in a largely developed area. But all in all, I think it's been a good process.
Okay, Bridget, would you like to comment?
Well, similarly, I'd like to certainly thank our staff who really worked tirelessly on this process. going to countless meetings, spending hours refining the ordinance and explaining to all of us and all of you how this process would go. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a planning or legal expert who would disagree that this could have been the best result for all the parties involved here, Anna and David especially. Thank you very much. Second, to our residents, whether or not you ultimately agreed or disagreed with this overlay, I really want to thank you for spending so many hours engaging with us, engaging with your fellow neighbors, and coming to all of these meetings. This was time away from your families, your work, simply sitting and relaxing in your homes. And we certainly, as everyone has already mentioned, sincerely appreciate how you participated in this process. I know I can speak for our entire board when I say that this process began because we really wanted to find the best way to make this work for our residents, for all of you, and be supportive of our institutional partners in developing land that we do not control. But again, thank you all very much. And I look forward to seeing how we can move forward and use the data that we've learned to find something that will work in the future.
I echo the thanks for the community input, the staff expertise, and explaining to us, Bridget said, explaining to us, and I'll say explain to us over and over and over again, the different aspects of it. And the overlay was obviously crafted to have a comprehensive protections of a specific site in relation to a specific plan. And with that specific plan gone, there's certain parts of it that, as everyone has said, that we have learned a lot from and we need to carry forward. Some of them should be carried forward citywide, and it is fortuitous that it comes on the heels of our livable communities and our comprehensive planning, because staff is already geared up to start looking at our zoning and our other ordinances and updating things. And this is additional information, additional community input that will inform that and help make that even more effective. And it's already ready. It's already geared to happen. The challenge then is, of course, is preserving everything that's come out of that and to play it forward. In addition to the things that I think are community-wide, which comes with some of the sustainability issues that we all believe in for every site here, Lights Out Heartland, the dark skies standards, updating parking ordinances, recognizing alternative transportation, and noise and traffic awareness. There are things that are specific to the site, even if not to the project, that we have to be sure to preserve in a comprehensive manner. And that includes the things in the overlay, like the setbacks, the preserving the trees, the transition zones, the topography and the grading preservations, the impervious surface restrictions, things like that. Hopefully the staff can work on now to be ready, again, comprehensive work with that site and to see what projects come next. Other things more directly tied to the proposed athletic use, obviously we have in our arsenal, not ready to be put anywhere, there to inform us if and when that time is right. So timing is important, and we just have to keep that ball rolling, even if we're not proceeding with this particular overlay. I also have a bigger picture comment. I know Washington University does not have anyone here tonight, but I certainly hope they are monitoring this, and I am speaking largely to them. I was on school board when WashU proposed offering the CBC site for the current middle school, and the community outcry was so immediate before there was even discussion about how that might happen. It was loud, and what I kept hearing was lack of trust, and now here we go again. Our community relationships need work, and Washington University chose and chooses to be a part of Clayton. This proposal shows that it was tied to increasing more housing for students in Clayton and building the recreational facilities within our neighborhoods. WashU students engaged with us. They tutor at Wydown, proposing ways to support and connect with our city. 15 to 20 graduates every year from Clayton High School go on to Washington University, matriculate to WashU. WashU staff and professionals, many live here, as do many of us who are proud alumni. But the business side, the investment in our community, at least a perception of it, and there may be a lot I don't know about. I see value, and I think most of us do, in having Washington University as part of our community. And Washington University obviously values being part of Clayton as well. We need that partnership. Washington University is tax exempt, while a city has a very tight and challenging budget. Peer universities to Washington to University embrace pilots, which are payments in lieu of taxes, and they otherwise directly invest in the health of their chosen communities. Why? Because it's their community too. And I mean, look where we are with WashU. It's a difficult situation. So what to do? WashU, I hope you're listening. I suggest you look through the city's comprehensive plan. I suggest you look and think about helping us with a livable communities plan. Our goals in these, if we can reach those goals, benefit every one of us, including everyone involved with Washington University. This is the chosen community. Show that you're part of it. Reach out to our Clayton Community Foundation, Alex Emstead, 314-290-8553. Support Kate Young, the awesome WashU student who's interning with our Sustainability Committee. Give her some resources for a project. Support Dylan Colbert, another impressive WashU student who's presented to us several times over the last year with detailed plans and how Washington University and Clayton can connect their pathways and be more one. If you, WashU, can proceed in developing this Concordia site, consider extending your current Arboretum efforts to it for your use, the neighbors' use, Clayton community use. Offer this or some other community welcome and community benefits. I appreciate our neighbors and all the input, the difficult and sometimes aspirational conversations. I appreciate Washington University, especially Joanna and Mary and the architect who sat in that front row through so many hours of meetings, as I appreciate our neighbors who have done the same. We appreciate Concordia, Dr. Egger, and value you as part of our community. There's a lot of good here. Let's work together, but many of the things that have been underscored throughout this process and for too many years come down to a community perception of a lack of trust. Washington University, it would help tremendously if more community members believed that you saw us as neighbors and believed that you would make your decisions with our Clayton community interests always in mind. If we started our discussions with this assuming goodwill, we could probably get a lot of very good things done for everyone. Engage in, invest in some business savvy generosity. Washington University, you've spent a lot of resources in this effort, as we all have. And there's no doubt there's more university development coming all around us. Perceptions matter. It would be great to start assuming best intentions and to move forward from there. And again, thank you for everybody who's been in this process. I think we are in a better place. It was difficult getting here, but I think we're ready to move forward.
Yeah. Thank you. Good ideas in there. Yeah. Go on, Gary.
Well, I support the withdrawal of Bill 7045 at this time, and I'll explain why in a moment. A few positives, just to mention things that have already been said. I think from the beginning, the staff's recognition that a new WashU proposal should not be considered under the R2 CUP because it has been used in the past on projects with Washington University with very disjointed and non-comprehensive way. And I think they were smart enough to realize that institutions like Washington University deserve their own, for the betterment of the city, their own kind of institutional zoning. And so I think that's a real plus. And Bill 7045 is an example of that. And just the language itself, the introductory language in the bill that is before us tonight says to substantially enhance Clayton's ability to regulate and constrain the spread of institutional land use in residential areas. They've recognized that this was a better approach. I've said from day one, I think it is the better approach. I think it is actually the only approach. I think the staff's work generally to introduce institutional zoning for Washington University is demonstrated through the placement of that kind of category on the South 40. I think that's an important step forward. Again, the efforts by the entire board, the mayor to really work on this issue. I will have to say special kudos to Alderwoman Patel. I saw the Q&A that she sent out, which was exhaustive. I know the very long list of people that she's been dealing with, and so I really appreciate her effort. And the citizens. I've been around a long time. I've never seen a project in which we got not only comments, they weren't always constructive, but most of them were constructive. And most of them went to the level of actually going through the ordinance and making suggestions on wording changes. That's a level of input you don't see very often. And a lot of that was very helpful. So I would also add in my list of people who did good things, not Washington University, who is not here tonight, but Washington University did actually ultimately provide us a lot of valuable information. The number of people who attend various sporting events, regulations from NCAA, it was like pulling teeth, but they did produce them, and they produced them in the last 6 weeks. And I think the point of that particularly was that it made for a very good ordinance, which is the one we have in front of us tonight, because we were dealing with very real numbers. Also, Concordia, their mission here is very clear. They obviously thought they had a deal with Washington University, not just one that was talked about, but was one going forward, because they spent the time and money to prepare detailed plans for their new residential housing. They submitted them to the city, went through the process, and the clock is now running for them on getting those things done. The ultimate best thing about this is Bill 7045, as it's presented tonight. I really think it is a perfected document for all the reasons I just said, which is we finally got enough information from Washington University to actually make it a very meaningful document. The development standards, for example, dealing with the different venues, the very now specific maximums for the different facilities, I think would not have been possible if we had not gotten all of that kind of data. And I'm very glad we did not choose to stop this process 4 weeks ago, because actually the last 4 weeks have probably been the most meaningful in actually perfecting this ordinance. So here we are, however, with letters from Washington University and from Concordia. And I think the letters are very interesting. The letter from Washington University says, "We believe the overlay version now before the city for debate on Tuesday, January 14th, is not feasible to meet the primary objectives of this effort. As a result, we request the city withdraw the overlaying zoning legislation while we evaluate our future options." That's their wording. Concordia sent out an email that says, remarkably, almost word for word, exactly the same thing, asking that we withdraw the overlay for the Big Bend area while we evaluate our future options. So I guess that means, that really is a question. What does that mean, while we evaluate our future options? I think what it means is, if you, Clayton, pass the overlay district bill, we won't submit a plan for our fields if we have to go through that ordinance, because it's too restrictive. That's essentially exactly what they say in their letter. What it doesn't say is, if there is no overlay district, Washington University can still apply for these fields, for these 27 acres. And it's almost certainly exactly what I believe Washington University intends to do, what they have always intended to do. And so in that respect, the letter we received is no surprise at all. They never wanted the overlay district. They don't want it now. And they don't need the overlay district, because our existing zoning provides them exactly a path to go forward to do what they want to do. Now, I noticed perhaps the Post-Dispatch reporter who put an article in the front page today is obviously smarter than I am, because she doesn't read the letter the same way I do, apparently, because the article in the paper has a headline, "Wash U halts plans to build new athletic fields." And the article says, "The school no longer wants to move forward." Now, I don't know how she got to that conclusion, looking at the same letter I did. And when the letter goes on to say, the article goes on to say that they reached out to Washington University for comment, they got no comment. Hey, big surprise. Because WashU doesn't want to answer the question of, are they going to go forward? Because I think clearly they intend to. So where do their letters leave us? Does evaluate our future options mean Concordia and WashU really aren't going to go forward with sports facilities on the 27 acres? If so, then we don't need a sports-related overlay. And so on that basis alone, we might as well withdraw it if they're not going to do it. But frankly, I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a moment. And frankly, I'm tired of guessing what Washington University wants. I think it's time, to put it politely, that Washington University either does it or doesn't, and lets us know what it's going to be instead of having us guess. After a year and a half of talking about what a possible transaction with Concordia is going to be, it really is time for Washington University to put up or shut up. Concordia is on the clock. They've already gotten a CUP. They have essentially 1 year to move forward with their project. So I think it's time for Washington University to either put the money up with Concordia, let Concordia build its buildings, or announce they're not going to do the project at all and not rely on the Post-Dispatch to determine what they mean in this very ambiguous letter. So I believe Washington University will go forward. I frankly think even if we had passed the overlay district tonight, which frankly would have been my preference, but even if we passed it, they'd be grousing for 2 weeks, and 3 weeks from now, they'd be announcing that, although they're not happy about it, they're going to go forward when the time comes and apply for the project under the overlay district. But maybe not. Maybe what they've said is true. Maybe the project is over, but I'd be willing to bet almost anything it's not. So when I say I support the withdrawal of Bill 7045, it is with the understanding, at least my understanding, that the bill is not going to go anywhere other than the desk of the city manager or perhaps that of the city planner. It's going to be sitting there waiting to be brought back at the appropriate time. And I think that appropriate time is going to be when we learn that Concordia has submitted building plans for their new building, which they can only do if they get funds from Washington University. And so then anyone who hoped that the project would never happen will know that it is going to happen. And then the question will then be, how do we regulate it? So this matter almost certainly does not end tonight. And I hope no one is naive enough to believe that it ends tonight, because it's not. So my ultimate thought is we cannot allow a CUP application from Washington University in 2028 or 2029 be the only way in which the city can regulate this project. We have time, we have the ability to evaluate the situation, and I hope we have the commitment of everyone to do that. I applaud everyone in the room, the board, all the citizens who've been part of this process. I think we have done our job. As far as I'm concerned, it's time for WashU to come forward and tell us, not in ambiguous terms, but tell us what they are going to do so that we can properly prepare for it and as a city deal with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I think now's a good time to allow anybody that's here tonight that would like to further comment on this before we take action to do so. And I'd like to just first ask Tom Egger, who's sitting in the back, if you would first come up and just make any comment, just based on what you've heard here, because I know that this whole situation is very, very important to your institution.
Now it's on. Thank you. I'm Tom Egger from Concordia Seminary, and let me just preface my comments by saying genuinely thank you to all of you, especially to the city staff for all of their work, excellent work on this project, and for the mayor for all of your help, to Becky for all of your conversation with so many people around this, which is so important. I think I mainly want to just follow up on the comments that were just made, and say, with all due respect, I think you're reading too much into the situation, that there's a great orchestrated plan here. I think the request on WashU's part to step back and evaluate is echoed by Concordia Seminary, the situation has evolved, and especially because Wash U's posture on this has evolved, our own sense of the path forward, we now need time to regroup, rethink, and there is no I can say, in all honesty, there is no behind the scenes shared understanding of exactly what we're angling for. This is not a ruse to try to manipulate the process. My understanding, though I have not been personally directly involved in the conversations with WashU in the last couple of weeks, my understanding is that in general terms, they are not comfortable moving forward with this project under the proposed overlay. I'm not sure the details for what specific things they would like to see different. And I'm not sure if cumulatively the whole process and where we're at now has landed them at a place where they may change course and decide to go a different route with this. We need to have those conversations with Washington University. Tabling this for now or withdrawing it for now gives us the opportunity to have time for those conversations. And so we certainly support the motion of withdrawing this legislative action for now. And I don't know if now is an appropriate time for me to comment as well, but I would really encourage the aldermen not to take preemptive action hastily to try to create some alternative overlay district that would relate to our private property out of frustration that Washington University is not yet definite in their plans for things. This portion of our property has been parceled off specifically for this project. It has not legally been parceled off. We do not own two properties as Concordia Seminary. We own one property, our 72-acre property. It's only been conceived of in two parcels with anticipation of this deal going through with Washington University. If they are to step back, we would strongly oppose any kind of special zoning parameters for one portion of our private property without any sense yet, any definite sense on our part of where we're going with that, the use of that portion of our property in the future. So I would just beg for your patience. I know this is frustrating to all of you, and it is to me as well. I wish we were on a clearer path right now, but we're working towards that. We'll continue to work energetically towards that. And we've been as transparent as we can with the city and with the community from our first public meeting. And we'll continue to be so. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay. Would any other of our guests like to address the board on this topic? Sure, Branko.
Bronco Marusik at 2 Tuscany Park. Thank you, all the aldermen, mayor, for your efforts in this and the patience in dealing with residents and trying to address everybody's concern. A couple things real quick. The first, I would agree that this ordinance, it should be tabled in some way, withdrawn at this stage. It's premature to do anything at this stage without, as we've always said, the residents have said, we'd like to know the purpose. What's the purpose going to be? So whatever premature sort of things that we put into it, it doesn't make sense at this time. Second of all, the alderman spoke to trust in Washington University. And I got my law degree at Washington University. Love the school, but I do agree that from the very beginning of this long process, that trust factor was really missing. And primarily, as we've always said, I thought we started with a couple intramural fields and then we moved on. And we had a discussion one time, Mayor, you were in this group when you tried to get some compromises, which was, we tried to say, well, if WashU had come forward and said, okay, here's what we're trying to do. How can we make this work a little better? What would be a better way to do it? Get some input that way, as opposed to saying, well, we're going to do this. We're going to have these wonderful public meetings, which will show that we did legally everything we're supposed to do in order to get the notice out to everyone. I think this could have been done a lot differently. Finally, the last point I wanted to make is, and it's something you said, Mayor, I'm not in agreement that the long-term plan of Clayton was so specific to say that that parcel should be an athletic complex. I don't doubt we had robust input into that plan, and that our academic institutions who are our partners in Clayton should thrive. But to say that that residential neighborhood that was being surrounded by 100 years of residential should turn into an athletic complex, I don't think that question or that issue was put before the people who gave that type of input into the long-term plan. I think something that specific, I really question whether that would have been the answer that they would have given back. Thanks for your time.
Are there others who would like to? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Betsy Malin Smith. I just wanted to thank the city staff and the board for your proactive efforts on this issue as part of the comprehensive planning committee. One of the things that I learned is that it's really important to envision what is possible in a space and be proactive instead of reactive. So I want to encourage you to continue that work. I think it will benefit our community in the long run, and I appreciate your commitment to making this a great place to live. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any others? Nobody else? Okay. All right. Deb, did you want to say anything, or you had sent us an email? Be brave. I know you are brave.
Doubt that.
No.
Again, I think you're correct. You're spot on. That's why I didn't jump right up. I have sent an email around to various people that are seated here. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Deb Grossman. I've been a resident of Clayton for over 30 years. We first lived in Ward 1, and then we've lived in, in Ward 3, but we've lived in Ward 1 since 1999. I've served in a couple committees for the city. I currently am the chair of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. And that's kind of at the heart of what I wanted to just point out in terms of the overlay district. So I'm also, full disclosure, I'm also a WashU alum and an active volunteer in a whole bunch of different committees for them. And I think they do bring a lot to our community. I won't go all the way down that rabbit hole, but we all benefit from them as well as they benefiting from us. There are some concerns that I have about not only the overlay district property, but also any similar kind of property we might have in the city of Clayton and in our community. And I really felt fortunate that when I raised some issues about lighting and noise abatement, stormwater management, our tree canopy, transportation and safety, and overall sustainability issues, every single comment that I made was heard. And I know working with Anna, who just did a fantastic job, I cannot say enough good things about how responsive she was, and the whole of staff was very, very responsive to those things. So I am one of those people that went through the whole ordinance and looked at it and made specific comments. And so those are the things that I would ask us to continue to go forward. You already have my laundry list, so I'm not going to read it out, but really trying to pay attention to how do we address these things, not only for that specific property, but what do we want to do about that community-wide? So asking that we consider lighting, noise abatement, stormwater management, our tree canopy, transportation alternatives so it's not so dense. Again, many of you already know we're about the carbon emission problem, and looking at how we take down things as well as put up new things. So change is coming, whether we like it or not. It is not going to be the same as it was 20, 30 years ago when I first moved in. So we have the opportunity to embrace that change and make the change for the better for everybody. That's all I got.
Very good, thank you. Yeah. Anyone else before we take action on this? Oh, and is there anyone online with their hand up? Okay, very good. All right then. In that case, we will move on to Bill number 7045, the Big Bend overlay. And do you have any kind of a staff report on this?
No, not really. Everyone's seen the
Everyone's-
letters. They were attached to the
Yeah.
staff report,
Okay.
our recommendations that be withdrawn.
Okay, so, repeating, we've had the two letters asking us to withdraw the overlay. I'm now going to ask if the person who introduced the motion originally would like to withdraw it.
I would, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to withdraw Bill number 7045.
If you would like to withdraw it, unless there is any objection, is there any objection on this board to withdrawing it? Okay, we don't have to have a motion and a vote. We simply have agreed that we'll withdraw it. And so it is withdrawn and perhaps to be considered somewhere down the road. We don't know, but nothing would prevent that. It is still a viable thing for us to pursue later if that should be the direction this board would want to take. So we are done. It is withdrawn. And you can all now clap and everything that you wanted to do. I know I've been waiting. Go on. All right. And now we have a lot of other business to do.
Mayor, before we
Oh,
move on to the
oh,
next item
oh,
on the
yes.
agenda, I
Yes,
would like
sorry,
to make a
thank you.
motion that staff explore options to implement the ideas that were not specific to the use at this site. The good ideas we've heard about that were developed through this process, and report back to the board with recommendations for implementing what we've developed through this process, whether it be at the site specifically or citywide.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Can this just be a voice vote? Yes. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we will duly consider all of our learnings and see how they can be leveraged throughout the city and wherever. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Now it's your chance to escape. Do we want to take a 2-minute break and then I can,
It's a pretty interesting
While they-
agenda for anyone who wants to stay. It's about as good as they get.
break? Hmm? Oops, sorry. The next thing on our agenda is the storefront window coverings, and so I will open the public hearing and request proof of publication.
Yes, Mayor. Vacant ground floor premises, particularly in commercial and pedestrian-friendly areas, negatively impact the city's aesthetic appeal, reduce foot traffic, and deter potential business investment. To address these challenges, the proposed ordinance introduces comprehensive regulations designed to enhance the appearance and functionality of vacant properties. There are some key provisions of the proposed ordinance. As far as window screening, it must be installed within 15 business days of vacancy. They must cover at least 80% of storefront windows and comply with city-approved design standards. Under signage and display, temporary signs advertising space availability or announcing future tenants are permitted, subject to existing sign regulations. Alternative displays such as artwork or products sold by other businesses or alternative graphics may be approved by the city manager or designee. For maintenance, storefronts must be maintained in a neat, clean, attractive, and well-lit condition. Adjacent sidewalks must be kept free of dirt and debris, and there are penalties included in the ordinance for noncompliance. Staff recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the proposed ordinance amending Chapter 425 of Clayton City Code of Ordinances to address the management and presentation of vacant ground floor premises. We do have Mr. Gary Carter here, our Director of Economic Development, that has a few slides here relative to the storefront window coverings.
Good evening. So this is a follow-up conversation from our August meeting where we discussed this previously. And this evidently PowerPoint's gone crazy on me with this format, but this was a breakdown of all the available or current, at that time, vacant retail space in Clayton, which I think the number's no longer there, but it was around 94,000 square feet. So a substantial amount. The existing ordinance covering this was basically that it had to be covered in a workmanlike manner with white butcher paper. And at one time, we had, in the past, created a program in 2012 to add a decorative paper here. It's just a blurry version of an outdoor dining scene at Napoli. It was, we spent about $3,200 on it, but it had significant other cost as the city was providing the paper, the staff was delivering the paper to the developers, and again, it was printed on regular paper, so it fared no better than the white butcher paper, meaning that the tape would not stick, the paper would fade, and in some cases, we had some spaces that went through several applications of this, that they were vacant so long and just kept getting replaced. The key provisions, David just went over those, so I'm not going to bring those up again unless you have any questions. One thing I did want to point out that the staff report did contain an error on the penalty summarization because it did not survive draft iterations that we finally wound up on. What we did wind up on is the standard penalty in most of the planning ordinances where it's under the 100, 110, and it would go to city court for enforcement with the judge. So that is what is in the ordinance, and I think we're trying to maintain some kind of consistency with the regular rest of the ordinances of that nature. I do have, as the ordinance stipulates that it is city-approved designs approved by the mayor and aldermen. I do have 4 options for you to consider tonight, if you would like to. That way that we could set this program up immediately. And the way this would work is that we have these sized digitally so that planning could put this on their section of the website and the property owner or their vendor could simply download that to do the printing. So this is the first one. The second one is the iteration of the St. Louis Art Fair posters. The third is a artistic rendering of downtown a la AI. And then another AI generated general storefront one. So those are the 4 that I have for you tonight to consider. These were the same ones that you've seen in our August presentation also.
And
I'm
so
hap-
do you need 2 or
Need as
1?
many as you would like.
Oh, so you could have all of these
You
available.
could have all of them and the property owner could choose, or there are provisions in the ordinance that would allow them to do other things with the city manager or his designee approval also.
Well, okay. I'll just go around. Does anybody have some thoughts about what they like or don't like, or?
Well, and then in addition to this, which I know is in the ordinance, somebody could propose like what's on the Dart Place. They
Top
can-
flight,
Top
yes.
Flight, they can propose something that advertises their establishment if it's coming in.
Yes.
I mean, that presumes, I guess, that somebody's coming in, but during the vacancy period, there could be something put up that would advertise.
Yeah, I mean, certain national retailers like that
Yeah.
would do something. More of a local shop would probably just stay with what was up already.
I mean, I certainly agree with the ordinance. I think the plan commission too was very in favor of it. I think one of the questions that was asked was the durability of the product. And as Gary had mentioned, I think that, this is a very durable product. It's long lasting. And that was one of the concerns. As for the ones that are proposed, I don't know who's going to use number 4. I mean, I like yeah, no, it's cute. Maybe if maybe if Baker. Yeah, or Baker. Yeah. I like 2 and 3. I like the art fair. I think it's great. I'm not so sure about 1. I don't know. It just looks kind of like scary to me, but I don't know. But maybe that's just me. So that's the only one where I'm just kind of not sure what's happening there, but the other ones, you know, I think it's good to have one that's kind of playful, like the cupcake, and the other two are focused on Clayton, which I think they should be. So the first one's the only one I guess I have a little question on.
Admin S.
Yeah, and
All right, any comments?
Same, very similar comments on the proposed graphics. I like promoting Clayton. So the two middle ones, I think are great. And I like that, the opportunity for the owner to propose something as well. I also just wanted to comment that I'm still, it's hard that that I understand the durability and everything else that we want of the product. And I'm arguing in my head that that's sustainable because we're not replacing the products all the time. And I hope we can keep, hopefully someday, moving toward a product itself that is more consistent with Clayton's sustainability values. And I saw in there you had the, there was some language allowing for biodegradable material. If there's something, if something like that.
It does, and I think when it becomes prevalent, we can reevaluate this and simply change it to exclusively that material
Perfect.
also. But to my knowledge, there's currently nothing available, but I did want to allow the flexibility to get ahead of it in case it does come up.
Yeah, I caught that and I appreciate that you're staying on top of that. And then with court enforcement versus an automatic fine, is that, if that's what you all think is the effective way to proceed with this, I support that, but sometimes by the time you have to file the, complaint, and someone reports it, then it gets filed, and then it goes to court, and by then, whatever's the most effective way to make sure this is that this has teeth, I hope we could do.
The city does not have legal authority to impose a penalty without going through a judicial process.
Well, there's my answer. All right, thanks very much.
I support the proposal. I would vote for graphics 2, 3, and 4. 4 is a little like silly, but I can think of worse things than cupcakes all over Clayton. So I like including the option. So thank you.
Alderman Fader, any comments or questions?
2, 3, and 4 for me. 1 is a little weird, I think a little too weird. I guess my question on maintenance requirements, maybe this is for you or David, as I understood, we were staffing up to be able to patrol downtown on somewhat of a more regular basis to sort of check on storefronts and the like. And so I'm just wondering where we stand with that, because I think that's an important part, at least I perceived with some of these sites that are, it's not just that they don't have paper, they also do a lousy job in front of their sites. And so we really need to push on that. So I don't know
Yeah,
where
so
that is.
the downtown position will be more public works heavy and maintenance heavy than necessarily code enforcement, although that person will have the ability to call in code enforcement issues. And then those inspectors that we have can come out and issue citations, or do whatever's necessary. As far as that position's concerned, though, that's something we want to get posted in February. And then as you might recall from the budget process, it's a mid-year hire. So our hope is that we post it in February and then have that person on board in April. And that's how we budget it. And we're on track to do that.
Thank you.
Rick?
I'm supportive of the ordinance as proposed. I support all of the graphics. I think it's appropriate to have different sizes, shapes, and a variety of styles. Unfortunately, we have a lot of vacancy, so more variety is better than less. So that would be my feedback.
Okay, very good. So I like everything here. Thank you for putting all this together and doing all the research. I agree that option number 1 is probably just not that festive looking or inviting, and so I wouldn't want to propose that. However, I do have an alternative to propose, and I think I might have mentioned this the last time, but if we can say if we can have a covering that shows St. Louis Art Fair, why can we not have a covering that has a nice graphic of our jazz festival and says Clayton Jazz Festival on it? I mean, what is wrong with doing that? We promote ourselves. It wouldn't have a date. It would just, because we do it every year. I guess if we stop doing it, we still have the other 3 options. I mean, is there a reason why we can't do that, or we wouldn't want to do that? We've got some amazing photographs of the Jazz Festival.
Although there's people, I don't know if people.
Well, they are released. They're musicians. Yeah.
Oh, the musician,
musicians,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I suppose it doesn't give any greater pause than the art fair option. But I think we need to be sensitive to requiring property owners to carry a message that we craft. There can be First Amendment issues implicated if the product we require them to post carries an advertising or message on behalf of the city, and we compel property owners to convey our message.
So that wouldn't, they could opt for a different visual. They don't have to use
Just an
that one.
option.
And B, we were kind of doing that with the art fair.
I said it probably gives me the same pause.
Okay,
as
yeah,
the
yeah.
art fair.
So I would just like to see us do that if we can. I mean, I like to promote ourselves. We have people coming in and out of Clayton. I know the Jazz Fest is already very popular, but it's something that is a regular occurrence that we could promote. We could promote any other thing that you think is worthy. I don't care, but I just like to do what we can to promote ourselves and what kind of great community we are.
Building on that too, and I think Rick, you made the comment that the more variety, the better. Is this a deck that can flip, that can evolve as different things happen? And again, if we have a broad enough choice, including the option of the land, of the tenant or the owner proposing their own, I hope that would address some of Kevin's concerns, but is this something that can change as we go forward? And what's the cost to that?
But I mean, this body is the ultimate deciding factor on these, so you can approve these whenever you direct staff to give you more options, so. Cost is, these so far have cost you nothing, well, some cost, but we can have that discussion later at an economics class. If you were going into artist or a committee or something like, I mean, it just grows from there.
But if you said, oh my gosh.
If we did it like this, nothing.
But and then, whenever you say, oh my gosh, this is a great, whatever, I wonder, I should take back the board, see if we can put this one in the deck as well. That's easy to do.
Okay, so we have some flexibility there.
I would just say that the ordinance requires that any graphic offered is approved by the mayor and board. So staff does not have the option of sort of generating and offering additional ones. And I would just ask, compared to the cost, I never thought about it till now. Do we own the copyright for like the art fair?
We asked permission from the art fair.
And they own the copyright?
Yes.
Okay.
This is one of
Do
the
we want
things-
this to be something that always has to come back to the board with that, or do
Up to you.
we want to always approve the?
I believe there was a provision where a request could be made by the property owner and the city staff or his designee the city manager or his designee could approve it at his
For-
discretion. Like we're allowing for that.
Somebody
And
brought
so-
an alternate design. We had the
Yeah,
discussion. to approve
I mean, I feel like we're over processing this. We have a couple nice options, like people will make a choice.
Yeah,
I-
I would
like-
like to add the fourth option of something about us. And so I think the Jazz Fest is the most visually exciting thing, but
Would you like to revise this so that staff can approve any number of these as opposed to all alternatives being submitted to and recorded, approved by the board?
I think that'd be appropriate. I would support that. We should make that
Make a motion to amend
So
it.
moved to amend. The ordinance,
So
to allow.
though the
staff-
bill has not been introduced, the
Okay.
revision would be in section 425.100A3B. The window screening shall consist of graphic elements predetermined by the city and available through the Planning and Development Services Department, striking the language and approved by the mayor and board of aldermen.
yeah,
So moved.
moved. Okay.
Well, the bill's not been.
Yeah,
That's
it's not
right.
been
Okay,
introduced
right.
yet.
But we can, that was
Okay.
what we
We'll
could
do
do.
that
when we
in
get-
a
Help me
minute.
when that comes around. Okay.
All right, so I don't know how to.
Mary, did you have a comment on that? Oh,
So do I have everyone's agreement that we can develop an alternative that is the Jazz Festival?
Yeah, and we have the
I'm
ability,
comfortable
if
with
that amendment's made, to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's-
All right. So I will close the public hearing. And Alderman McAndrew.
I'll introduce Bill number 7050, approving an amendment to Chapter 425, Section 425.020 and Section 425.100, revising the requirements for storefront window coverings to be read for the first time by title only.
Second?
And would we concurrently add that new language?
no, we just introduce it, then we'll take an amendment.
Okay, any discussions? No? Okay, Mr. City Attorney?
Bill number 7050, first reading, an ordinance amending sections 425.020 and 425.100 of the City of Clayton, Missouri City Code pertaining to vacant ground floor premises. And now, if I may, the motion would be to amend proposed section 425.020, excuse me, point 100,
3B.
subsection A3, lowercase b,
E.
by striking the words "and approved by the mayor and board of aldermen."
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and just a voice vote on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, very good. Alderman McAndrew.
I move that the board give unanimous consent to consideration for adoption of Bill number 7050 on the day of its introduction.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let the minutes reflect the board's given unanimous consent.
I'll introduce Bill number 7050, approving an amendment to Chapter 425, Section 425.020 and Section 425.100, revising the requirements for storefront window coverings to be read for the second time by title only.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 7050, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending sections 425.020 and 425.100 of the City of Clayton, Missouri City Code pertaining to vacant ground floor premises.
Alderwoman McAndrew,
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse,
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel,
Aye.
Alderman Fader,
Aye.
Alderman Hummel,
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, the licensing regulations for bars.
Yes, this is a public hearing to solicit input regarding proposed amendments to Chapter 405 and Chapter 410 to modify definitions and use regulations for bars, entertainment venues, and live performance venues in the HDC High Density Commercial District, which is essentially downtown Clayton, and to repeal the Entertainment Overlay District, or EO. In September, the Board of Aldermen set the fiscal year 2025 priorities for implementation of the Clayton Tomorrow 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Included as a priority was the key result, update liquor licenses to allow bars in downtown Clayton. The proposed text amendments were presented to the Plan Commission during a public hearing on January 6, 2025. And at that meeting, the Plan Commission recommended approval of the text amendments with the condition that the definitions be reviewed to streamline the business types and remove unnecessary regulations within Chapter 405. The proposed ordinance reflects the changes made by staff based on the Plan Commission discussion and recommendation. Allowing bars in downtown Clayton requires modifications to Chapter 600, alcoholic beverages, to establish the liquor license regulations, as well as modifications to Chapter 405 zoning regulations to introduce the use type and operational standards. The conditional use permit process will allow for an additional layer of review and information about operations for specific businesses at each site. Through the CUP process, staff, the Plan Commission, and the Board of Aldermen can add conditions to mitigate potential impacts. In addition to the CUP requirement, staff recommend maintaining some of the operational and submission requirements for specific uses that are currently allowed in the EO, such as noise abatement plans. Liquor license requirements are outlined in Chapter 600 and are largely dictated by Missouri state statute.
Modifications proposed include adding liquor licenses for bars and updating definitions to coordinate with zoning definitions. Staff also recommend moving many of the provisions from section 405, 340, alcohol services as accessory use to chapter 600. Staff recommends that the Board of Aldermen hold a public hearing and approve the ordinance with the desired amendments. And we do have Anna Crane here if you have any zoning questions. She's our Director of Planning and Development Services.
So I'll now open the public hearing, and we've already had proof of publication. Okay. Any discussion? Any questions, you guys? We've talked about this a lot, but it's finally here.
No, I would just say that it was supported at the Plan Commission. Everybody asked some good questions. I will say that a resident reached out to Gary and I expressing concerns. There's a number in here, I think as many as 12. But I think it's important, maybe just it for my, and I probably should ask this at the Plan Commission. I know we've talked about it and that we put a number in it just to like have a number. But that obviously doesn't mean at any point we could modify this if we felt like we were getting too many bars in a certain area. I just want to make sure that the residents' concerns are addressed. Because it does seem like a large number just in our high density commercial.
So the number was actually 0 based on the discussion at the Plan Commission level. So there was an existing restriction on the number of wine bar liquor licenses that could be issued. And so we streamlined, there's a limit on the number of live performance venues allowed under the entertainment overlay district. During the previous discussions, when we kind of streamlined what uses are and combined live performance venues under entertainment venue and separate from bars, we removed that 12. So right now, as the ordinance stands before you, there is not any limit. And we also removed the limit on number of wine bar permits, as Gary's mentioned before. We don't have any currently. The reason we did not incorporate wine bars as a bar is because wine bars are allowed uses within our C1 and C2 district. So we wanted to maintain those uses along Clayton Road or other areas. And if we just kind of folded those under bars, then essentially you would be adding a bar as an allowed use within our C1 and C2 districts, which was not the goal here. It was only HDC. So if you want to add in a limit on the number of permits that can be issued to certain types, then we would need to add that back into the ordinance.
Okay. And then if we are, I am comfortable, just because I want to be sensitive to the fact that we have some residential neighborhoods that are very close to our HDC districts, and I just want to make sure we're being careful. So if we start, I understand that we have the CUP process to mitigate potential impacts related to noise. But if a bar were to apply, for instance, on one of the areas on Central, like the very second, or even maybe right on the corner, that's considered an entrance on Maryland, so that would not be allowed.
So the main entrance couldn't be facing Maryland, but it could be the one tenant bay in from Maryland on Central. You could have a bar.
And because now it's not allowed use, we wouldn't necessarily be able to say no to that.
Right,
Unless they couldn't mitigate any impact.
Correct, yes, unless they couldn't meet the CUP criteria. I would say that we, at this point, we've tried adding wine bars, we've tried adding entertainment overlay districts in various forms, and we haven't really gained success in our primary goal here. So I would be hesitant to say we need to right now put in some limit of 5 or whatever it might be, but we'll be able to closely monitor it and could look to see if there's a need to have some, a lot of zoning codes might say there's a separation between similar uses. So you don't get 10 bars located on the same block, because then they kind of compound each other. But I would recommend that we monitor this process, see how this text amendment progresses, and then we can always make amendments to the ordinance moving forward.
Okay, and yeah, I appreciate that, and I think your expertise is helpful. I just want to, again, be careful monitoring this. If we, I understand that we're getting a few new entertainment venues, but,
right.
Again, just want to be sensitive to all the neighborhoods around us. So.
Yes, yep, definitely.
Yeah, Alderwoman Buse.
Yeah, the only question I have is, not that long ago, we passed something that required training of anyone serving alcohol. And I was wondering how that was going, and it may be even more relevant to making sure that we're having that's working for us as we, assuming it's successful and we start getting some more establishments. So, have we had, has it been enough time to know whether
Yeah,
everyone's
I mean,
complying with that?
it's still a
or
work
not?
in progress, just like any new regulation like that, where you have some stragglers.
Okay.
We've stayed after them where you can really, well, where this will really have some teeth this cycle is when we go to get the liquor licenses renewed.
Okay.
So at that point in time, you can have them furnish that proof in order to get the renewal, and that's where you really have a hammer. But otherwise, yeah, we've had, since that was put in place, I think we've had 2 instances where we've gone out and done the checks where we bring a minor in. And the last 2 that we've had, Chief, if I'm not mistaken, we haven't had any violations here in the city. Yeah, 0. So that's a huge improvement, because if you remember before, I think we were running like maybe 60% or so
Right, it was
failure
really
rate.
high.
It was
Yeah.
ugly.
We had maybe 3 in a row that were
Yeah.
really bad. So there's been a big improvement. I think word's out there, and you see that reflected in those safety checks.
Very good. Thank you.
Good question.
It's a great
Alderwoman?
update. I
Patel?
have no comment on
No,
this.
okay.
I support it.
Okay, good. Barry?
My only question was, this email we got from one of our residents quoting from the Plan Commission, and I take it for what it's worth. It says, "I was literally shocked to hear Anna Crane suggest that the city could adopt a new proposal authorizing up to 22 drinking establishments. I can't recall if it was 10 bars and 12 microbreweries or vice versa in downtown Clayton." So I'm still not sure I entirely know what the answer is to that. So,
A city can dream.
We don't have a limit right now.
Limitless.
yes.
Yep, the answer is
So
0.
where did the 22 come from?
Originally, there's a provision in chapter 600 that limited the number of wine bar licenses that would be issued. And then also under the entertainment overlay district, there was a limit on licenses for live performance venues. But there wasn't a limit under the entertainment overlay for entertainment venues. So we had a couple of limitations and a couple of not, and that was a big part of what the Plan Commission said. They were kind of like, how is a live performance really substantially different from an entertainment use? So why are we limiting one and not the other? So instead, when we streamlined everything, we took away that limit. So I guess now the answer is limitless.
Limitless. Got it. Great.
Unlimited. Okay. Rick, any comments, questions?
I had several questions that have already been addressed regarding the benefit of the wine bar definition and the limits on licenses. My other questions, maybe I'd missed it, but is it identified here or somewhere else, the grounds where a liquor license could be revoked? Where do we
That's a
find it?
separate provision in chapter 600.
Okay, so we just don't have that in
It's
front of us.
It's a general provision.
That's
for
fine.
language.
Okay, and then what about temporary events? Do people need a temporary liquor license for street parties or things in the park? And if so, does this get addressed anywhere in here? Or should we be worried about that in any way?
We have another section in chapter 600 that
That's also
addresses that.
separate.
as-
Yeah, the sections you see from chapter 600 are only the ones that are being amended under this proposal. So temporary licenses for events or other things is another section under 600 that we're not modifying.
There's provisions relating to picnic licenses,
Caterers.
caterers. There's all sorts of licensure provisions in chapter 600.
So we've addressed it elsewhere. Okay, thank you. And then my last one is not a terribly substantive thing, but I did find it interesting that we are prohibiting happy hour. Do we enforce that when we go around? Are we looking into that? And do we really want to enforce that?
That's another provision that's been existing under liquor license. I would have to defer to other people who enforce the liquor license regulations on.
I understand that when the police department goes in before 6 PM, anyone that looks happy is.
I suspect that we wanted to discourage mass consumption of alcohol, and that's why we put that in there. I just find it interesting in that we still have that in there, and if in fact we enforce it.
Yeah, I was careful to not touch a lot of chapter 600 that wasn't directly involved with the discussions that we had had previously about the entertainment overlay or bars. So for.
That's an existing.
Right, that's
regulation.
exactly, that's an
not new.
existing provision, so I
I'm
didn't.
not, but I'm saying it's
Yeah.
in here and we're being asked to affirm what's in front of us, right? So.
Just
You could
strike it.
strike it.
I mean, I'm sorry, I apologize. That completely got by me. I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, many places have happy hours. I won't, name.
I
any
would
names.
suggest that places in Clayton have happy hours.
Yeah.
I think that's kind
Yeah,
of the point.
I would have to defer to somebody else for
If I
recommendation
may,
on
I
that.
believe the focus here was on a land use issue. If you want to reconsider licensing regulations for alcohol, that was not staff's focus in preparing this or drafting the amendment. So we intentionally didn't tinker with anything that was not required to be changed in order to accommodate the land use goals that staff, objectives that staff was given. I respectfully suggest there may be a lot of antiquated provisions in the liquor code, which you may wish to consider in a context of licensure and public safety, as opposed to the land use issues we tried to address here.
Well, I get the substance of what you're saying, but it's still in front of us. And so this is
is.
right here. And you're saying you want me to vote on this and say that we should do this. And that doesn't seem right to me.
I have not researched whether there are parallel provisions elsewhere in chapter 600, which ought to be adjusted if that provision were changed.
I understand that. Yeah.
We could certainly take a look at it, and I'm sure the chief and the finance department that's responsible for licensure can take a look at it.
So I would agree that it seems counterproductive to outlaw happy hour. I would like to get this basically passed. So we can do it either way. We can delay passage, assuming you all agree that we want to change that and go at it the other way.
I
Or we
don't
can
think we
just do
should
this
have
and
I
go
may-
back.
support that.
Amending the liquor code does not require P and Z review or public hearing and notices and all that sort of stuff. It's a pure legislative act. We can take it up at any time without all the run-up that was required for this legislation. And I just don't want to suggest to you that we would know the knock-on consequences of tampering with that language tonight.
So what if we approved this and then later came back and adjusted
Right.
the liquor license regulations? Would that automatically then fall in? This
Yes.
would automatically pick those up?
Right, because this is, the reason you have the red line is because if you go on to our code of, our code books tomorrow, if this were to be approved, the red lines that you're seeing, the changes that were proposed would be mixed right in with everything that's already existing, such as the ban on happy hours. So
The happy hour is actually banned for essentially retailers of alcohol that have sampling on the site. So it's not actually
yeah,
it's not a restaurant. This is if you
I was
have.
gonna say, I mean, we got a lot of happy
This
hours
is
being
the-
advertised in Clayton. Like I go to them, I've been to
Busy.
them. You can, there's a list of the 38 best happy hours in Clayton. on-
Yeah, if you look at it, it's
FYI.
all license issued pursuant to subsection B shall be subject to the following restrictions. Subsection B talks about retailers, basically package retailers that have sampling on the site can't have happy hour and they can't have a bar service. You
Okay,
can't have a
so
bar.
happy hour is not illegal in Clayton. I'm
It's
so glad we
only-
cleared that
only
up.
only illegal if you have a liquor store. You can't have a happy hour.
Packaged.
All right, so in that
Whew.
case, I don't find that concerning. Alderman Hummel, are you okay then with
I
that?
just needed clarification and we got it.
That's
So
that's what it is.
Okay, thank you for asking the question. All right, if there are no further discussion, Alderman McAndrew. I will close the public hearing.
I'll introduce Bill number 7051, approving an amendment to Chapter 405, 410, and Chapter 600 pertaining to land use and licensing regulation for certain hospitality businesses, to be read for the first time by title only.
Second. Any discussion? City Attorney?
Bill number 7051, first reading, an ordinance amending land use and licensing regulations pertaining to certain hospitality businesses.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed?
I move that the board give unanimous consent to consideration for adoption of Bill number 7051 on the day of its introduction.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let the minutes reflect the board has given unanimous consent.
I'll introduce Bill number 7051, approving an amendment to Chapter 405, 410, and Chapter 600 pertaining to land use and licensing regulation for certain hospitality businesses to be read for the second time by title only.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. City Attorney,
Bill number 7051, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance amending land use and licensing regulations pertaining to certain hospitality businesses.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse.
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel.
Aye.
Alderman Fader.
Aye.
I always depend on them to tell me. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Okay,
Alderman Hummel.
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, our consent agenda. Any, comments or questions about that?
Mayor, I noticed a little belatedly a few typos in the list of attendees at the last public hearing, so
All right, did you submit those already or do you need?
I have not, I forgot to, but I'm happy to do it now, or I can tell June afterwards.
I can take them now.
Okay, take them now. All right, in the list of people, I believe it says Bronco Music, and I believe he spoke tonight, Bronco Marusic. Marusic. I seem to have seen him on some emails.
That's correct.
And then Marie Vone, Vone, is Marie Bone, Bone. And on two situations where we mentioned the Wiles, it's Weils as opposed to IE. Josephine Weil, and in the other case, it's plural, but in any case, it's EI instead of IE. And that's all for me.
Very good. Anything else there?
I think Bronco is spelled K-O, Branko.
ANKO. Chuck Shagrin is SH also, I believe.
It's a
I could be wrong.
CH. His name is CH.
Last name,
Uh-huh.
Shagrin?
Uh-huh,
Oh, okay, thank
it
you.
is, yeah, yeah. Okay, let's see.
I've
So-
got a question
go ahead.
outside of that, but it's in the consent agenda. When does Flight Club intend to open? Do we have any idea?
I don't know, have like.
They
have-
talked about,
They want to open
They-
like next week or.
yeah, I
They
mean, like
do?
soon.
Okay, God.
That's great.
They got ahead of, wow,
Yeah, they should
Yeah.
be open within the
What's
next.
your
week or
question?
two.
Rick?
no, they beat out,
Open, right? They got
Five
the
Iron.
License in here.
Oh, 5 Iron is moving at.
When does
like,
Five Iron
real
say they're
pace.
opening? Have they applied for a liquor license yet?
No, I don't think
No?
so.
5 Iron has not.
Okay. Okay, well, good. All right, so if that's everything on the consent agenda, you please, you move to.
Yeah,
approve.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse.
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel.
Aye.
Alderman Fader.
Aye.
Alderman Hummel.
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the fire sales tax.
Yes, the city of Clayton is authorized to impose a sales tax at a rate not to exceed 0.5% for the purpose of providing revenues for the operation of the city's fire department. And in April 2014, the voters of the city authorized the levy of a 1/4 cent fire sales tax to support operation of the city's fire and EMS services. Since that tax was authorized, the effects of inflation, the enhancement of the city's EMS and fire prevention and suppression services, advances in fire service technology and equipment, and expansion of the fire department workforce, coupled with paying competitive compensation to those in our fire service, has substantially eroded the contribution which the current fire sales tax makes to the operation of the fire department. Presented for your consideration is an ordinance authorizing an additional sales tax for operation of the Clayton Fire Department to be placed on the April 8th, 2025 ballot. This proposal would authorize an additional sales tax of 1/4% tax on all retail sales made in the city, which are subject to sales tax under Chapter 144 of state statute for the purposes of continuing to provide fire and EMS services at the current levels. Revenue from a fire safety sales tax can only be utilized for fire and EMS services. It is estimated that the additional 1/4 cent sales tax would generate $980,000 annually. In Missouri, when a new sales tax is approved, collection of that tax begins on the first day of the second calendar quarter after the tax is approved. If approved in April of 2025, the additional sales tax collection would begin on October 1st, 2025. St. Louis County Board of Election Commissioners requires the governing body to pass an ordinance placing the issue on the April 8th, 2025 ballot. The deadline to submit items for the ballot is January 28th, 2025. And should the ordinance be approved, it will be submitted to the Board of Election Commissioners for the April 8th, 2025 ballot. Staff recommends first reading, second reading, and approval of the ordinance on the day of introduction.
All right, I'll open the discussion. I'll just go around in order. Yeah.
David, can you just remind, is the numbers required to pass something different from April and August? I just can't remember what you said.
Not for a sales tax.
Okay, so it
Be a
doesn't.
simple majority.
Okay, thank you. I would like to try to put this on the April 8th ballot. I think the messaging could be pretty clear. So that would certainly be my preference. I think if a majority of us think that we should wait till August, but I would just assume like to try to get this going and start collecting as soon as possible. It sounds like our fire department is certainly on board, and I'd like to get our fire commission, or I can't remember how they're called, like how they call themselves, the charitable organization related. It'd be great to get them involved. Because I think, our community loves our fire department. So I think this wouldn't be a hard thing to understand. It's not related to property tax. And so yes, ultimately, I would like to root for April 8th.
Good. Susan?
I will say ditto to those points made. It is something that I think will be easily comprehended and something that our community could get behind without a lot of, and the opportunity costs. We might as well go forward with it now. We've waited a while to do this, and I think that we can do it well in April.
If it doesn't pass, how soon can we try again for it?
Bring it back as soon as you'd like.
Like we could do it in August again?
You
Or
would have-
you don't have to wait a
would-
year?
You would have time to certify it. Get it back. on the ballot.
My only hesitation is that I would like to know what information we have about who will actually campaign for this and what folks' capacity is to do that. My capacity is limited over the next couple months. And my sense is that this would not be a hard sell, but I'm not, I think it would be unwise to put something on the ballot and not understand that there is a plan to actually advocate for it. And so if anyone has information to suggest that we know there are actual people who are going to do that advocacy, I would support April. If not, I think like I could personally be committed to do more on the way of August, but we have someone who's coming up.
Hi, Jesse Roots, CFD new shop store. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank-
sitting through the meeting with us.
Of course, it's joy. So to answer your question, the campaign for it, being the shop store at the union, I already told all the guys and girls about this, and we would be happily to get our boots on the ground and campaign for it. And like you said, I think it will pass easily in April. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so you can be ready to do that
Oh, yeah.
in the next couple months?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you say your name again?
Jesse Roots,
Thank you,
10 North
Jesse.
Beaviston.
Appreciate it. All right, there you go. Question answered.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Gary.
Well, my only concern, I think, was just addressed, which was logistics, and that is the concern that can we really get this done effectively? Other than that, I would go for April because,
Yeah.
first of all, and we didn't even know this when we met last time, there is no contest for mayor. There is no contest for the Board of Education. I think the only thing we've heard is that the county might have a use tax measure in April, but the county seems to be very lax about even promoting these sorts of things. So I think that this is the kind, and frankly, unfortunately, given the tragedy in Florida, if people weren't already uptight about fire, I think it's even more so. So this should be pretty much a slam dunk. I can't imagine who out there is going to be opposed to it, the CCBA or anybody else. So as long as we can get this done logistically in August, we're very possibly have a contested election for Ward 3 alderman. I understand the county, at least some people in the county, would like to have a charter amendment to try to be able to remove the county exec or other people more easily. So there's a number of things that could bring more people out in August. So if we can get it done logistically, I think we ought to go for April. Wouldn't kill me if it was August, but I think there's some arguments here to just get it done with. So I'd probably opt for April.
Go ahead, Rick.
I was going to ask David to read this part, but I see it in front of me about when this can be effective. So it's the first day of the second calendar quarter after. So as opposed to the first calendar quarter. So is that a state law, I guess?
It is.
Okay. I don't have any other comments. I support it as proposed.
Well, I definitely support doing it. I do have a concern about, our ability to get the real education done. It's the end of January, or it's the middle of January. We will not be able to utilize City Views because it's already done. So, we will have to rely on putting information out.
We can hit city views before April.
We can.
The spring edition will go out in
Okay,
time. The
all right,
winter
all right.
edition is past, but. spring
Well,
will
it's
be out.
true. Okay, all right. So it'll come out, hopefully it'll come out before the first
March.
Tuesday in April. Okay, okay, good. I thought maybe that would already be gone by. So, yeah, and so again, I do share Becky's concern about who really will organize the communication effort on the part of the city or outside of what the city does. And so I know that our staff can get the communications out on that part, but otherwise, I don't know. I don't have the capacity or the bandwidth. And so it'll be reliant on others to make sure that happens. So in that case, yeah, I mean, April is good. I think it has every chance of passing. So, all right. So, in that case, Alderman McAndrew.
I'll introduce Bill number 7052, a ballot submission on the April 8th, 2025 election authorizing a sales tax for operations of the Clayton Fire Department to be read for the first time by title only.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. City Attorney?
Bill number 7052, first reading, an ordinance of the city of Clayton, Missouri, calling for submission to the voters of the city of a proposition authorizing an additional sales tax for operations of the Clayton Fire Department.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move that the board give unanimous consent to consideration for adoption of Bill number 7052 on the day of its introduction.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Let the minutes reflect the board has given unanimous consent.
I'll introduce Bill number 7052, a ballot submission on the April 8th, 2025 election authorizing a sales tax for operations of the Clayton Fire Department to be read for the second time by title only.
Second. Discussion? Okay, Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 7052, second reading and consideration for adoption, an ordinance of the city of Clayton, Missouri, calling for submission to the voters of the city of a proposition authorizing an additional sales tax for operations of the Clayton Fire Department.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse.
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel.
Aye.
Alderman Fader.
Aye.
Alderman Hummel.
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, next up, something I've been wondering about for a while, our new door to the police station.
Yes, bids have been received. So the exterior front doors on the west elevation, this is facing Brentwood, of the 10 South Brentwood facility or the police station need repairs due to deterioration. Bids were received on January 3rd, 2025 for replacement of the exterior double wooden doors. The bids were on a table in the packet. Seals Enterprises was the lowest responsible bidder, and Public Works is recommending the bid from Seals Enterprises, an amount of $39,750 be awarded. This project was funded in the general fund in fiscal year 2024 for $36,500 and will be included in an upcoming budget amendment. The savings from other projects are not realized to bridge the gap. Staff recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve an ordinance authorizing a contract with Seals Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $39,750 plus a contingency of $4,250 for the 10 South Brentwood front door replacement project.
Okay, open discussion. Any comments from the board?
Just that I'm glad it sounds like the company recently was successful in other work there. So I'm always happy to hear that when they're also the lowest responsive bid.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Yes, comment? No? Alderman Fader, any questions, comments?
No, I'm just gonna go visit so I can try out the new door.
Okay.
I'm just not familiar with, I mean, I've walked in these doors, but I don't know why, what is unique about this that it costs so much? What drives the cost up?
They're solid doors. The doors that we have there now are laminated and they've delaminated over time. One of them, I think, is missing a handle at this point. Then you have all of the electronic stuff that has to go along with it. Here comes Matt to talk about it.
Yeah, that's
I've
what
asked the same question over and over again during budget process.
yeah, we've had it in the budget a few years and the prices continue to go up. We feel like we got competitive bids this time, but the doors themselves will be, they're currently a laminated door. Where these will be solid wood that will perform better for the exposure that these doors get, but the hardware and the safety bars that go with the door add up to more than really the doors themselves and the labor associated. So, and it's a quick turnaround as far as schedule because of the way this facility operates. It needs to be secure and be done quickly.
All right, thank you.
Very good. All right. If there's no further discussion, Alderman McAndrew.
I'll introduce Bill number 7053, a contract with Seals Enterprises, Inc. for the 10 South Brentwood Boulevard Door Improvements Project to be read for the first time by title only.
Second. Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 7053, first reading, an ordinance approving a contract with Seals Enterprises Incorporated for 10 South Brentwood front door replacement. Shut the front door.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move that the board give unanimous consent to consideration for adoption of Bill number 7053 on the day of its introduction.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hey, let the minutes reflect the board has given you unanimous consent.
I'll introduce Bill number 7053, a contract with Seals Enterprises, Inc. for the 10 South Brentwood Boulevard Door Improvements Project to be read for the second time by title only.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 7053, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance approving a contract with Seals Enterprises Incorporated for 10 South Brentwood front door replacement.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse.
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel.
I'm
Alderman Fader.
Aye.
Alderman Hummel.
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is pods.
Yes, this request for board action recommends amending section 505.150 of the Clayton Municipal Code to reflect evolving community needs regarding portable on-demand storage units or pods. The code currently imposes strict limitations on pod usage, including placement, duration, and frequency. As these units have become a common and practical solution for temporary storage, particularly during moves, a code update is necessary to balance convenience for residents with maintaining public safety and neighborhood aesthetics. The current section 505.150 provides a framework for the use and placement of pods, and again, limitations on placement, usage, etc. These provisions do not, however, adequately account for the widespread acceptance and utility of pods as a residential moving solution. We do have some proposed revisions, which includes allowing short-term placement on city streets, implementing a limit of 3 occurrences during a 12-month period. And again, that street placement, we limit the duration in here to 3 days. So staff recommends that the Board of Aldermen approve the ordinance.
Okay, very
And
good.
I would just state that this is responsive to a condition we're seeing all over the place. So it's common now for people that are moving to get these pod units. The city will actually go out and block on-street parking spaces for individuals that are moving. So these do show up from time to time within that particular space. New residents coming in, a lot of times aren't aware that this ordinance is there. They may not have a driveway that they can place the pod on. And they're in a situation where if they want to move in, they've got to basically utilize it. So we feel that the time limitation of 3 days allows us to still enforce it and give those new residents and those people moving, some flexibility there.
Yeah, do you feel like 3 days is a sufficient amount of time?
It should be,
Okay.
yeah. Typically, the days or the moves are 1 to 2 days. We'll have those closure signs up for a few days, but you typically see the truck come and they're done, or a
They're
pod
picked
come and
up
they're
pretty
done.
quickly
Yeah.
after, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just not had one. I just don't want to set people up for
Yeah, what
failure.
we're not going to allow is like, and my house is being renovated and I've got to have all my stuff in the storage unit on the street for a month. Something like that wouldn't work, but especially for those new residents coming in, what we really don't like is if their first interaction with the city of Clayton is somebody coming by saying, hey, you can't have, this storage unit out on the street for, 1 day while they're trying to move into their house.
Right, okay, thanks.
Refresh my memory. What is the limit on the driveway, People
You
have
can
it on the
place it on
drive-
a paved surface.
on a paved surface? And is there a limit to the time that you can have it in your driveway? Just curious.
Trying to recall what that is. Gary might know.
I think it's 7 days.
7 days. Okay. I just wondered if there's a limit there at all. Okay. Oh, that's good. All right. Yes, further questions or discussion?
I have a question. So, is the placement allowed, like anywhere that like parking is allowed, or is it only allowed and/or if they get this signage from the
It would be
city?
where parking's at.
Yeah,
And that's where we place the signs, is where we allow street parking.
yeah. And then, can you talk about the 3 occurrences during 12-month period? Is this, is the limit on the individual requesting it or the location?
It would be for the individual requesting it.
Yeah,
So
okay,
we'll keep track of how many times each address
yeah.
has a
That
pod. We
seems
want to make sure
not
they don't
very
have one out there,
likely,
every
like,
weekend.
yeah.
I think it's highly unlikely anybody
Yeah,
would have
okay.
this.
All right, thanks.
So really
No
dumb
further.
question. Could you have 3 occurrences in a row, 9 days? I'm not saying that would be terrible. I'm just.
No, you would need a
asking.
break between occurrences.
The ordinance has a 30-day period between each occurrence.
Okay. I should read more carefully, is what you're telling me. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. All right.
Thanks.
Any other discussion over here?
I see that we have a prohibition on any kind of a fire lane. I'm just wondering about, just in general, do we have any other narrow streets where it wouldn't necessarily be in a fire lane, but could pose a fire hazard? I'm just trying to think through either alleys or narrow streets.
And we would only allow those where street parking is allowed. So in those particular instances, if a car could be there, the pod could be there.
That makes
They're
sense.
roughly the same size.
It also prohibits alleys.
Okay. And then what about high-density housing areas? Not that many apartment dwellers may use this, but either the frequency or the likelihood that multiple ones might be there, especially in like a large a building. How would we deal with that?
So you may very well have instances in neighborhoods like the Morelands where you have a couple of people that are moving into a building, say on the first day of a month or something like that. So yeah, there could be circumstances where you have 2 different units that are moving in and you have 2 of these on the street at the same time. But I would think that those occasions are relatively rare.
Well, it was maybe more going into the prohibition on the number of times, because there could be multiple residents, even though it's the same address, just to make sure that that's contemplated. And then secondly, like what about in the city, central business district? The larger apartment buildings now, I mean, would it have to be in their parking garage or could it be on the street in the public, the downtown street
You could
there?
have an issue as far as the meter is concerned. I guess if they got if it was similar to a space that they rented that particular meter and we have a meter rental program, if you're going to exceed that, the time limitation, they could come and pay a fee, a daily fee, a daily rate for the metered space.
So, but we wouldn't have a problem with that. We were fine applying that in.
We would work
its-
with somebody on that,
Okay,
as long as they went through the meter rental.
okay, that's all.
Good questions. Okay. All right. Alderman McAndrew.
I'll introduce Bill number 7054, an amendment to Chapter 505, Section 150, Portable On-Demand Storage Units, to be read for the first time by title only.
Second. Any discussion? Mr. City Attorney.
Bill number 7054, first reading, an ordinance amending section 505.150 of the City of Clayton, Missouri City Code pertaining to portable on-demand storage units.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I move that the board give unanimous consent to consideration for adoption of Bill number 7054 on the day of its introduction.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let the minutes reflect the board's given unanimous consent.
I'll introduce Bill number 7054, an amendment to Chapter 505, Section 150, Portable On-Demand Storage Units Project, to be read for the second time by title only.
Second? Any discussion? Mr. City Attorney?
Bill number 7054, second reading and consideration for adoption. An ordinance amending section 505.150 of the City of Clayton, Missouri City Code pertaining to portable on-demand storage units.
Alderwoman McAndrew.
Aye.
Alderwoman Buse.
Aye.
Alderwoman Patel.
Aye.
Alderman Fader.
Aye.
Alderman Hummel.
Aye.
Mayor Harris.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, is it last? Second to last, oh, there's one more thing. Second to last, but not least, the proposal for the marker for the Osage commemoration. You wanna-
Yes, so in the packet, we have the marker language that has been approved by the Mayor's Commemorative Landscape Task Force, by the Equity Commission. And so we do need approval of that language tonight, but in some subsequent conversations with the mayor, we had we had more discussion about the site plan that's also mentioned in the RFBA. So we do have a cost estimate in there. There is in front of you this evening a more detailed site layout for the proposal that was seen recently by the Parks and Recreation Commission. But I'll turn it over to the mayor to talk about the site planning portion of this.
Okay, so, what I would like to do tonight, is ask for your approval on the marker language. And as David said, it's been approved by all the appropriate commissions and including the Osage in Oklahoma. And then, I would like to share with you the idea, the concept for and site plan for the actual installation in Oak Knoll Park. That has also been approved by everybody, including the Osage, except the task force. We will meet tomorrow. We had to reschedule our December. So I cannot imagine that they will have any issue with any of this. We've talked about it before, so it'll just be the final look-see. So if we could, I'm going to share all this and then we can go back and if we can have a one approval for everything, will that work?
Yeah, that would work. And ultimately, if you want to approve the expense, we just need.
And the
yeah,
expense, yes, and the
we just
expense.
need that to be clear.
Yes, okay. So is it possible to share just the actual visual of Oak Knoll Park to begin with? The, not that. No, this piece here that is in the packet. And I'll ask to pull up some of the plantings as well. So just by way of background, we did ask Carolyn Gatus, who was on our plan commission for about 6 years and is a landscape architect, to pro bono do the site plan concepts for this. And she did 2. One was more extensive than the other, and as I'll explain when we see it, but the one that the Parks and Rec Commission really liked the best was the more simple version, which I think is great too, because it's a little bit less intrusive. Not that any of this is intrusive, but okay, so if you look at this visual, you can see the project site there in red. There's a little circle of trees here, and Tony is not here, but or Justin, but Justin has developed, he's planted 6 sycamores there in a circle. And he had already done that just as an interesting, I can't think of what that's called, but they will eventually grow together into sort of a web and it'll be really, really amazing. So that is kind of the center of this, what I would call a council circle. And so then if we move on to just the other drawing that you pulled up first, the one that you have at your seat, but also we'll put it on the screen. Yeah, that piece, and you might want to just look at it on your printout. It's essentially, the trees are in the center. There's around the edge is simply arranged in a circle, some stone benches and some mulch and some plantings, which are listed here, that are traditional plantings that the Osage would have used when they lived here and had purposeful uses for, but smooth sumac, purple poppy mallow, and also Osage orange trees are planned for the site. If we could, are you able to show any of these pictures? Okay. If you show the benches, this one.
Which
So-
was the simple one that you said that did they like the cut stone seating or?
Well,
old?
so in Carolyn's original packet that she sent to us, she included a variety of things, but the things that the Parks and Rec Commission focused in on were the less curated, the less intrusive, the more natural. And so, you see there's an option there for cut stone benches, but they really like the idea of these boulders type benches. And so you can see on this drawing, that you have, there are little indications of the benches. There are 4 of them shown there. And that would be, the recommendation was this, which the Parks and Rec and everybody liked. There would be no gravel, there would be no cut stone, it would be mulch in a circle there. And then the rest of the ground would be as it is turf. So some of these other this is if you see the trees that have kind of grown together there in a web, those are the sycamores, and that is what Justin is shooting for, which is kind of amazing.
Wow.
Again, he was already on this path and those trees are planted, so that would be at the center of this. And then the smooth sumac, you see a picture there, Osage orange trees, you see a picture there, and there's the poppy. There's another picture of purple poppy, but there it is at the bottom. And so it's a low growing ground cover. So that is the concept. A circle with 4 benches, some plantings that are significant to the Osage, and the plaque would be located there somewhere. But I think that's kind of the exact spot is yet to be determined. And what I suggested to Parks and Rec, and they liked it, and I hope you will too, is to let Justin and Tony have a little bit of creative license with exactly how this all works out when they get into it. So the cost to do this, Tony has said, is $10,700. Justin, I think they can do it anytime. So if we don't mind approving the expenditure and the concept, they can, again, I would defer to Tony as to when she wants to embark on this. So that's what I'd love to have your approval of the marker language and the concept and the expense. And then the expense would be brought forward in due course in a budget amendment whenever Tony wants to proceed. Does that make sense to everyone?
Sounds great.
Okay. Any questions?
I have one comment. And versus changing the language of the proposed language, I think it'd be powerful. I think it's really powerful to use plantings that would have been part of their nation.
Yeah.
I think it would also be powerful to have something in the Osage language. And again, versus messing with your plaque, which is a much bigger deal, I wonder if we could do something like have the names of the plantings in the Osage language next to where they are.
I think that I've kind of mentioned at the Parks and Rec that it'd be nice to at least identify the plantings and what they were used for. So I think that would be a great addition.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about, keeping a language alive.
Yeah, yeah.
Language. I think it would be, yeah, if we could
Yep.
do that.
Yes, I think that would
Great.
be awesome. Becky, any comments, questions?
No, thank you.
Jerry?
Is this item already in the budget in some form?
I was just saying it would have to be a budget amendment.
Budget.
Uh,
So the board approved the expense, then we would put it in an upcoming budget amendment. That's assuming you want to do it in fiscal year 25. Otherwise, we could program it into a CIP. Or I guess it wouldn't be a,
Any grant
expense.
considerations we should be taking?
I'm sorry.
Are there any grant opportunities? we should
No,
be-
the only grant that would be out there, unless there's something maybe through the Osage Nation, would be the municipal grant, but we're maxed out project we have right now. You can only have 2 at a time, and remember, it's
And the-
still incomplete.
Right, and we still have things we
We've
want to.
got some larger projects that we'll be
There's no room
chasing
there.
money down for.
Um, Rick?
I'm fine with the concept and the cost. On the verbiage, I just wonder, I don't feel strongly about this, but I don't know if there's a specific date that is going to go on this, but the last sentence just struck me as odd, saying, today the city of Clayton wishes to acknowledge, as opposed to simply saying the city of Clayton acknowledges. But if it's important to tie it to a particular date when the plaque is put in, then I guess I understand why that's there. It just seems like this is a forever thing as opposed to just a today thing. So that's why I was confused by that.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
I agree with
I
that.
see your point. But today, I'm reading it again for myself. Hang on. I think today, what today is representing there is in the present time. So now, in the present time, at this point in time, we wish to acknowledge, and I will say this, as much as I hear you, unless it's a hill to die on, the Osage have approved it.
I'm just offering a suggestion, that's all.
Okay. Oh, I just hate to go back through that whole process because it can be quite involved. So, okay.
Question though, if,
mhm.
if Parks and Rec does put any type of markers by the plantings and things like that, whether they do it in the Osage language or not, is there going to be a change to the amount of 10,700? Are we approving it? Or it says approximately.
It
We're all okay
could.
with that,
It
Oh.
could.
but we're okay with approving this as it is tonight with that.
Yeah, so
Anyway.
what we have in there is an estimate. If you want to approve the expense, you still have to approve the actual dollar amount at the time you do the budget amendment. And we'll want to refine that before we actually put it in the budget.
So can I just call for a voice vote then?
I'm
Or do I
supposed
need a
to,
motion? Yeah, go ahead.
I
Bridget.
move to approve the language for the Osage Nation marker
Concept
the-
and the budget.
and the concept and the budget allotted in the staff report. Oh,
Okay, if there's no further discussion, do we have to, we don't have to read anything, obviously, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. A lot of work went into that on the part of the task force, and so they'll be very happy. The citizen survey is last but not least. Thank you, Andrea, for your help with this.
The biennial citizen survey is scheduled to be mailed to residents in mid-February. The goal is to receive the results by early May in time for the Board of Aldermen retreat and fiscal year 2026 budget preparations. To meet this timeline, the survey instrument must be finalized by January 17th. The survey will include a cover letter introducing the purpose of the survey and providing a link for residents to complete it online. Additionally, the cover letter will feature a QR code to encourage residents to sign up for city communications. Attached for your review and discussion is the draft 2025 citizen survey. Items for consideration, the survey cannot exceed 7 pages. Pages 1 and 2 are primarily used for benchmarking. Pages 3 through 6 focus on guiding future programming and planning at both the departmental and citywide levels, and red line changes reflect input and revisions made by staff. Also in your packet are questions that have been suggested by members of the Board of Aldermen for inclusion in the survey. So we'd really like the board's guidance on questions that you guys would like to include. And as you can tell, our space is limited.
So we submitted, I think some of us submitted some questions ahead of time. And I don't know if those are what are represented here.
Yes.
So none of those that were submitted ahead are actually included in here. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if you add any of those, you would have to remove something else because it's a pretty full 7 pages.
Yes.
I mean, I guess you could add a couple things. Sorry.
I didn't bring my questions, but I do think that I had some that aren't on that list, and so maybe you included them.
The only question that was not included on this list was the question about the fire safety sales tax. All other questions that I
Okay.
received are.
Okay. Yeah. And is that question in the survey then?
It is not, because the board.
It's already
voted on
going to
it.
be on the ballot.
Yeah, okay.
I just had a question about this page limit. Is that because our arrangement with the folks who do the questionnaire is that there's an absolute limit? Is that where that comes from?
The survey company that we use is ETC Institute, and they recommend that you do not go past 7 pages because people are significantly less likely to complete the survey, given the length.
Now, I just had the observation, since it's already been noted, that if we're trying to add a bunch of stuff and we have a page limit, really don't have any room to put anything. So that being the case, I just wondered about particularly the demographics section, which is really sort of trying to identify who the participants are. That's questions 30 through 37, whether that somehow could be in a separate page, because it's really sort of a background page. Some way to try to open up some space and still have a questionnaire of a certain length, but the demographics is really just trying to figure out who's filling this thing out. It's really a different animal than the rest of it. So that was just a thought about how to make some room if we want to add some stuff.
I will share that in the past, ETC has recommended that demographics are inclusive in that 7-page limit.
That's part of the 7 page.
Correct.
I guess I'm just, I didn't submit any recommendations, and so I'm kind of, and I think it's always really tricky to try to develop survey questions and figure out what we would do with the answers, especially if they're like one-offs and we don't have past data to compare them to for trending or anything. And so, like, I don't know how we would, use information that we got from many of these questions. And so I don't necessarily want to talk about it. I don't know if someone wants to really advocate for ones that they put in and we talk about it, or I don't know what process would be helpful here. But from my perspective, it's, I don't really want to take a vote on eliminating the bike lanes. Like, we have a plan to talk about that and like talk about it as part of our livable communities master plan follow-up and things like that. Like,
Trying to go back and just review any questions that I had thought of before. So I guess there was a question submitted about, should we get an opinion about the bike lane? Should we actually do a survey? Because we didn't really ask the specific question about that bike lane when we did our livable communities plan. That's what I think we heard. It wasn't.
I don't think we
evaluated
asked anything about any specific bike
Yeah,
lanes
yeah.
around the city.
But we do get a lot of citizen input about that bike lane, citizen and business input. So, I, you know, I don't know what we have to lose by putting a question like that in, other than if we have to
Space,
take
because we only
something
have 7
out.
pages.
Yeah, so,
It kind of stuck out to me when I read it. It sounded like, oh, this is somebody who opposes the bike lane.
Yeah, it's leaking.
And just when and then I went back to see where it would fit in and the language is different. It doesn't feel as neutral to me.
uh-huh.
And if we already have a plan to talk about bike lanes and livable communities, I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
better way to ask it,
Mhm.
both of those. How safe do
It
you
wasn't
feel?
something that I submitted, but
No,
I
I don't
did
care
see
who
it go
submitted, I don't
by,
wanna
and
know,
so
but
I'd just like to,
if it's a
give that
neutral
its
que-
due.
Right. When I read it, that was my takeaway, and that we don't want that in a survey.
I'm just looking for a place where there's transportation issues.
Well, it's at the very end,
at-
yeah, number
okay.
25, where it talks about developing additional bike lanes.
Let's see.
Yeah.
What I would recommend is not necessarily that these questions go in as they're written, but if you were to ask the question about the bike lanes, it should be asked about any of the like specific bike lanes throughout the city. So you'd want to structure it so that there were multiple questions or line items so that it wasn't just on one bike
We're not
lane
just calling
specifically.
out this one.
Yeah, and picking up on what Becky said,
Their
too, it's
transportation.
kind of, I wonder how we do that. If it's not expanded, should we keep it? Yet we're not to the point of knowing
Well,
going to be, I mean, anyway.
I don't know, is this too simple-minded? Rate your satisfaction with the quality of the following: the ease of travel, the availability of the
Where are
local
you?
sidewalk, on number 24.
Okay, thank you.
And what if you just add, I mean, what if you added in there, your satisfaction? So number 12, the current bike lanes in Clayton. That would be, I guess, that would be Wydown and Maryland.
Different than 6.
I don't know.
Available, yeah, because there's
Where
already
is the-
bicycle lanes.
Oh, here,
bicycle and
availability of bike lanes, that could mean, I mean, we only have the 2, so somebody could easily respond to that. I'm very dissatisfied.
No, I just think that bicycle lane on, I don't think the bike lane on Wydown is very different than the bike lane in downtown.
It is different.
So I don't know how
Like,
you,
I don't know what we would do with information that we got on that question.
yeah. I don't know.
Like,
Ask
I-
more
like,
questions.
that's
And I'd
what-
just
there's
be
no-
confused.
yeah.
I'd be like, what am I, which one am I talking, which one? I do use the
Oh, then
one,
you could identify it specifically.
not in
it's just-
number, because you're just
You could.
rating your satisfaction. Oh, you
Are-
mean if
Are
we
you
parceled out
satisfied
the
with the
question?
bike lane on Maryland Avenue? Are you satisfied
we
with the
added
bike
a
lane
que-
on Wydown Boulevard? I
Well-
mean, you could. I'm just putting it out there
So
because
we
it's
just
been
did
a
a
point of
livable communities
consternation.
master plan and got a lot of feedback from the community on this kind of stuff. And I thought we had a plan to do a next step here. So I'm just not like sure what, how this acts as an additional data point that actually helps us make decisions or prioritize things.
I don't know, if you had a great response saying, no, we love the bike lane on Maryland, wouldn't that give you more confidence in whatever we plan to do with it down the road? Or what if you had a response that said, the majority of people don't want it? I mean, wouldn't that give you some information? I don't.
I think
I'm
half
not
of
gonna
Clayton
follow my
doesn't
sword.
know there's a
I
bike.
was-
I
was
think,
talking-
I'm sorry.
I'm not gonna
Yeah.
follow my sword over this, but I want you to consider it because it's just something that I think all of us get a lot of community feedback on over time. It has never stopped. So just saying, it's a chance to affirm something that we believe in, or maybe we'll get an answer we don't like. I don't know, but
Oh,
that
well,
makes
let me
sense.
fess up that I was the one who proposed one of these. And I do think, as the mayor says, this is a topic that, at least in Ward 3, because we've got Maryland Avenue, we have the bike lanes, we do hear about quite a bit. And I don't think any of the questions in here really get to the central question, which is, what do people think about the bike lanes, and do they think we should continue to have them? I had raised the question, if they're only going to be those 4 blocks and it's not going to be extended, does it really make sense? We're not going to make a decision based on this response, but I think right now our questions about bike lanes don't address the elephant in the room, which is that there are a bunch of people who don't like them. And I'd like to see if we could get some response from the community as to what people's feelings are. It's not gonna be determinative of what we do, but I think it's something we'd like to know.
So if it could be a neutral, not eliminate, should the city expand or eliminate the bike lanes on Maryland? Yeah, that sounds more consistent. That's not the language of the survey, but
Yeah. I mean,
that's, it seems like when you start asking about bike lanes, it's going to take more and more questions when you pull out a specific one, but if it's neutral, that's fine. It doesn't,
I'm okay with neutral, as long as we get it out there.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the survey is very general. So I just worry about pinpointing a specific topic.
well,
I don't know. I'm just trying because I feel like it's availability of parking. And yes, we ask about our police force and our fire department, but that is different than, I don't know.
Do we say anything about parking ambassadors?
No,
Oh,
well, I can't remember.
oh, yeah. So I don't know. I will tell you this. I think if you could fit in one more line there to ask that somewhere, I would support it just because I would love to have something to say to people. Cause I think it will be like, oh yeah, people want bike lanes. We found that out, I guess, in our livable communities plan, right? So I'm not actually worried about the response coming in as, oh no, we hate the bike lane 98%, I would love to have something I can say to people. Look, we went through the livable communities plan process and bike lanes in general were very, very highly desired. In particular, we have this survey, it's quantitative. People want this bike lane.
I mean,
Good story.
Well, I'm wondering, under 25 level of support, could you be very general and say, instead of developing, you could say maintaining protected bikeways on city streets? I don't know. Would that be? You know what I mean? So you're just, and that way you're not really pinpointing I mean, we have only one protected bikeway in the city. So it's the one on Maryland because Wydown is not a protected bikeway. I'm just trying to think of a way where we're just being a little bit more neutral. I don't know.
I thought Susan's version of it was very neutral. I liked it.
either way, I said expand or eliminate. This kind of is very specific for this survey.
But
I'm not
it's a
afraid of the
specific
information,
question
I
that
just don't
people
want to
ask.
Mhm.
Yeah. Could we perhaps defer to our staff to develop the actual question? Would you be okay with that? Or do you want us to write it right here?
Do you want it? Yeah, I mean, we just need to know, do you want the Maryland, do you want it called out specifically or
It should
not?
be. Because that's what people keep hitting us with. So,
I think it should mention it.
okay.
I don't think it makes sense to mention it. I think the idea of like, should we expand our network of bike lanes?
We
That
say
has
that.
nothing to do with the Maryland bike lane.
But it does
give us
because
an answer.
the whole thing that people complain about is that it's a bike lane to nowhere. Well, if we build a network around it, it won't be anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
that doesn't answer it for me. So I wouldn't be able to tell people.
I
want
think
to
half the
expand.
city does not know there's a bike lane on Maryland Avenue. I understand that a very vocal portion of the city feels like it's an eyesore and a major issue, and they talk about it all the time. But it's gonna be very odd to call it out. Like, that's my perception. I mean, I think if we wanna, I think actually the safety, like question number 5 is what's your feeling of safety in various situations related to walking and being a pedestrian in our city in a variety of situations? I think you could actually ask questions in that section about safety using bike lanes, and you could even have like using bike lanes, like biking in downtown, biking in residential neighborhoods, biking in, I don't know what, if there's a different scenario, like you could put stuff in like that and see what people say.
I think Maryland Avenue is the only place in the city where we've not only added bike lanes, but we've narrowed the street in order to accommodate them, which is part of the complaint we hear. You'd go Wydown or other places where we designate a lane, we still haven't changed the street. Maryland is not just about the bike lanes, it's about narrowing it, people's concern that they're closer to traffic. And when their door opens, now I'm not necessarily saying they're legitimate, but we hear it all the time. Maryland is different from everybody else, and it's different for a number of reasons.
Didn't Whitetown used to be 2 lanes?
Yes.
And then it was cut in half and we added a bike lane.
And
And a pedestrian walking lane?
2 lanes, I guess, was it?
Oh, that's what I was.
People used it
Yeah,
that way,
maybe,
but
yeah.
it was.
That's
Oh, okay.
forever.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to digress. I'm just
Right.
trying to.
Yeah, I mean,
That was a long
that's a
time ago.
different kind of, like you said, it's very different. So, and we're not getting, I don't get any questions about that bike lane, 0. So I just, I mean, it's, like I said, I'm gonna make one last ploy here. I mean, I would like to have data that says citizens want this bike lane. To me, that's helpful. I think we would get that. And,
Why do we
if
think
we
we
don't, we
didn't-
still are gonna go through our process of, evaluating our whole bike network. So I don't see what we have to lose by putting it in. And I don't think anybody's gonna read this survey and say, oh my gosh, all these questions are general, but that one is specific. I just don't see that happening.
Doesn't fold in very.
I just wonder, though, kind of getting to the end, what are we going to do with this information, whatever we ask? And so it seems to me that we've raised a number of issues here about the drawbacks of the Maryland bike lane and the complaints. And then we've talked about the necessity or the ideal to expand bike networks and make it all more functional. It seems to me it's more along the lines of if you want to know whether we should have like a special study about bike lanes and that's what you want to find out, that seems helpful. But sort of just getting a general opinion about a particular bike lane, what are you going to do with that information? Are we going to, is the goal to really eliminate it based on this? If so, then we should write it that way, but I don't think that's the objective. So I'm just wondering, what are we going to do with this information, whatever we get?
Well, a minute ago, I was saying that if I had information that was quantitative that supported that specific bike lane, that would be very useful because people are constantly hitting us up about it. If I, if it came back otherwise, which based on our activities in the comprehensive plan, I would tend to think it would not. But if it did, then, we would just incorporate that into our overall planning. I mean, that doesn't mean we have to remove it. That just means we know that there's more than a handful of people that are unhappy with it, and we have to try to deal with that. So, that's all. Again, it's not my hill to die on. I'm suggesting that we find out something quantitative that we.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out because my impression is that the Livable Communities Master Plan was a process that did get us some quantitative data about how our community and residents feel about biking and bike lanes. Do folks agree with that? Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, that was affirmed, and that's why the bike network is a big part of the livable
Right.
community master
Like,
plan.
so we have that data. Like, I mean, we know that people are interested in bike lanes and a strong bike network. And that is quantitative data developed over many months in an extensive process.
So I guess
I think that's a,
I've asked about this in the past, and I've asked, so that data, where's the specific data on that bike lane?
So
I
we
haven't
didn't,
seen it.
so the conversation though on the livable community master plan was about establishing an overall network for the city, not necessarily do you like this one
Right.
segment of it that exists
Yeah.
presently.
Yeah.
So that we don't have the answer to that question because those surveys that went out didn't say, do you like this one segment? It was getting into what's the favorability of moving forward with an expansive on-street bike network. And that's really
It's very different.
what the survey was after.
Well, and if we know that's what people want, then why would we start asking our residents whether they like a very particular one? Like, I don't know.
well, I think it's the difference between a concept. People can easily say, oh yeah, I think having bike lanes everywhere is terrific. But then we have one area in which we've implemented it, which is at least potentially very unpopular. Now, I don't know either whether it's only unpopular with 12 or 15 people or with a lot of people who live around Maryland, but that's the issue. It's not whether people conceptually like biking. They do. They wish we could have bike lanes everywhere, but when you look at a specific project that we've implemented, it appears to be unpopular. But I think what the mayor's point is, maybe it's not. If you do a survey, maybe people on demand don't even care about the Maryland bike lanes. I think that's possible, but I don't know. I think they get over there sometimes. They drive on Maryland, so I think they have trouble parking sometimes, all that. It's a specific issue that I think it to turn a blind eye to and say, oh, we don't want to ask about it. I don't get that.
Well, I think this is an important issue, but to ask it in a very narrow way on a survey, I don't think gives us a result that's very helpful. I think that the concept, what I'm getting out of this is we already know that it's unpopular, and so we can get either confirmation of that is the likely scenario, and that it'll be unpopular among people that have to drive or do business on Maryland. So it would seem to me it would be more important to know if we're going to develop a network, here's some potential alternative solutions. Which one works better? Or how do we solve this problem? How do we address something that's unpopular in context of all this? And that requires a special study, not one or two questions that are on a survey. I just think that's not going to be very helpful to us. I don't think we'll do anything differently based on whatever those results are.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we have to look at, which I think we've all agreed, but I'm just not sure I'm just not sure asking a direct question on a survey is the best way to do it.
I think all we're doing then is kicking the ball down the road. Instead of at least starting to address it, we're going to go, well, this isn't the best place for it. So let's deal with it some other time, which could be 2 years from now or 3 years from now. Here's our chance to actually ask the question and get some information. So it's easy to defer it, but I don't know what the point is of that.
I don't know if it's deferring it. It's that conversation. What does that tell us? If we, under the Livable Communities Plan, are doing a bike network, we're going to find out if this is the appropriate place to connect and continue, or if it's not. And pulling it out now as a very isolated question is hard to know how we handle that, whatever we get.
That's fine. I tend to like to have quantitative answers. What you're suggesting won't be that. And so it'll be, I don't think it will be quantitative. It'll be more of a planning steering committee, just public engagement, who attends decision, which is fine. That's the way we want to go. And so I'm not gonna go crazy on it, because when you do it, I probably won't be here anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, the only other, I would be somewhat supportive of adding maybe a question for the level of support if it was maintaining protected bike lanes in downtown Clayton, something that feels at least more general. But I mean, again, I'm just trying to come up with some middle ground, because I
Sure,
do
thank
understand
you,
your
that's
point,
fine.
Gary, because yes, I hear about this every single week. So, and again, that could be like that could be something that we've seen today with, Wash U. It could be, like you said, the same 15 people. And it would be nice
to know that.
I mean, who knows if we get a survey back and it's like, oh gosh, look, 60% of survey respondents support the maintenance of
Would be-
protected bike lanes in downtown Clayton. So, but yeah. I don't know. I'm also not a survey expert, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure the best way to do this.
Okay.
So without coloring somebody's view of it. I mean, I don't know.
And the other questions on here?
I mean,
Yeah,
how are we gonna,
I don't
how are
have a
we gonna
comment on
process
those
all of
things.
this?
Yeah.
It's just kind of a lot.
Okay, so, Bridget, do you want to make a motion to add the question you just stated? Or would you like to let it die? It's up to you. Created the question.
Yeah,
I'm trying to see where it
I think it
could
would
fit.
It
Like,
would be 25, number 4, most likely.
because I feel like a lot of those questions we've asked multiple times about the bike lanes. And we were always trying to get some idea of how people felt about bike lanes, but it was also so specifically related to the Marylands. Like, it's like a reduction in vehicular traveling. I mean, so we've done that on Maryland. So I think if there is a question, maybe taking out one of those and somehow asking it in an indirect way there.
David, you had a suggestion.
No, I was just saying, I think number 20, question 25 would be the appropriate place if we were
going to ask for level of support for
Level of
Develop-
support for maintaining protected bike lanes.
developing and maintaining, yeah.
Yeah.
You could say developing and maintaining on-street bike lanes in downtown Clayton, something
Sure.
of that nature.
Yes.
That meet the objective.
That's good.
It's better. We need to do anything other than just all say, okay?
If you all say, okay, we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Any other questions about the survey?
I mean, does anybody want to advocate for any of the other ones, or are we just?
Well, I'll say that I added, I think, all of the sections on elected officials simply because it seemed to me there's lots of things that as the board putting this together, I would think we would want to know as the board what people think about what we do, what these commissions are. Yeah. Again, I didn't try to put them in the framework of the survey, but it just seems to me this is an area that's sorely missing in the whole survey. It says, how do you do with the police department, the public works? But it really doesn't ever ask anything about what's your relationship with your board of aldermen or your plan commission. You care about those things? How could you have a better experience? Those were all my questions, which was attempted to get at that subject, which I think is important.
I mean, under customer service, we could add something related to overall responsiveness of the board of the mayor and the board of aldermen to your concerns. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
But I think I like the gist of this. I wonder, though, I'm very hesitant to propose questions. I think the survey people know how to do this way better than I do.
That's fair.
And I bet they've already done this in other communities. And so I think we can learn from that. But the idea of how do you engage with your community leaders? How do you want your communication received from your community? Those are important questions. And maybe there's a variation on it in the context of what Gary's written here, I think is good. But I got to believe that the survey people have asked this question in other communities and can offer us some good structure on that.
but don't you write most of the questions, Andrea?
Oh, no, I will give them red lines and they'll look at it and make sure that it's
Survey
unbiased.
acceptable.
Yes.
Got it.
But they do this survey, this kind of thing throughout the country, right? And so we're not reinventing the wheel here if we ask them for some feedback on that topic.
Yeah, so I did ask them for some feedback on that, and some of the suggestions that they came up with were overall quality of representations by members of the Board of Aldermen, and really just making a change to, so sorry, question 16, and adding a few lines for under awareness of services and engagement efforts for ward coffee, Board of Aldermen meetings,
Oh.
plan
okay.
commission meetings, and then a 16A with a follow-up question, but I do want to share that just those additions alone maxed us out.
I think those would be good
Those are
additions.
good,
So,
though.
yeah.
Yes, but then we would not have room for the other question about the bicycle lane. So I just wanted to share that we would be pushed over the 7 pages.
Couldn't we take out one of the other questions, though? I mean, I don't,
Under
I
what
guess
would
I
you-
shouldn't,
what
like,
would you
one of the
take
ones,
out?
like, about reducing traffic lanes. It seems to me that the other question is more important to everybody, so I feel like, because why can I
Yeah,
not?
and you have 2 cycles worth of that data and
Right.
similar questions that were posed during the livable community master plan. So if you're going to trim something down, that may be an area to do it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, about code enforcement and stuff. Yeah.
So we
Could just
maxed
add
out
one
without,
question about elected officials. One.
we maxed out without including the rest of the suggested new questions. The bike lanes, and it was winter sports and yard signs.
No, so we would be maxed out if we were just adding the questions about elected officials as proposed by ETC.
Versus, okay.
And the ones they proposed were what we just quality of representation by elected officials
Yes.
and awareness of ward coffees and what else?
Board of Aldermen meetings, Plan Commission meetings, and then also they suggested a 16A that says, various standing committees and then lists the examples. So
We don't need all that
No.
detail.
I don't think we need planning either, because we
I
have a
mean-
whole section on planning, like Anna pointed out, don't we?
We have a
The
general
planning and
question about
development process.
representation of your elected
I was
officials.
going to say, my comment on 20 and 21 is it's actually, I think, a very limited question, because while it's certainly true that people show up to object to someone's application, the number of people who actually apply
Oh,
for a planning and development permit is exceedingly small. I mean, it's every once in a while someone has a variance request or they're building a new house, but that's a handful of people. I think 20 and 21 doesn't really get to what we want to get to. I think it's, if you're someone who's concerned about 139 North Beamiston and you come to a meeting and you want to object and you get 50 people, but that's not the applicant. I think the question should be about, what's your experience when you attend a planning and zoning meeting? So I think this 20 really asks the wrong question. It's much too limited in scope, because who the hell applies for these permits? It's either a builder who probably doesn't even live here, or it's a handful of people. So I understand it's important to get to planning and development. This just doesn't get there very well, I don't think.
Problem is, it's directed to those who have applied.
Right,
versus
but
just people in
that's
general.
very few people,
Okay.
very few people.
Anna, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you, whatever, but the question you proposed is that. So I'm not.
I mean, we know how many people attend the meetings.
It's
and
also,
it's not.
I mean, again, it's under the context of helping you all, that's very different. Being satisfied by the process, it's gonna be completely different. Up in opposition of whatever was on. They're gonna say that was a great process. If whatever the item was approved, they're gonna say, I'm not satisfied with our process. So from my standpoint, that doesn't provide me a lot. From your standpoint of asking if they're satisfied with your, really hard to frame it. But I think we probably don't need to ask it.
Since we haven't done it before, we could just ask about ourselves this time and see
Yeah.
what kind of responses we
Yeah.
get.
Just one question.
I mean, we
one
do
simple-
this again in 2 years.
Yeah.
So
I think it's good. We don't need all the subcategories to it.
I think
Boards
we
and
could just
commissions.
ask about the board.
Yes,
And
exactly.
see what people say.
And
about-
definitely leave out the mayor. Just go with.
So to
Oh.
clarify, the suggestion from ETC was the overall quality of representation from the Board of Aldermen and Mayor. Is that what you guys would like to include?
Yes.
It's interesting, and that's fine if we want to do it, but we are elected officials.
That's our.
Are electing
endorsement.
us, and so to ask,
That's
It's-
true. It
I
might
mean, we
be
get
from-
information about how the city is doing.
Yeah.
We get information about their approval of us with the election time, so we can put it in here, but it hits me as
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Might be-
How much contact you have and how effective are the communication methods I get. I don't know.
I think the question is
It's a comment
about, the question is about the group as a whole. Does the Board of Aldermen as a group represent you well? That's different than, do you think your Ward 2 representative is the best person? They can decide that at the ballot box. They can't decide about generically whether this is an effective way to run the government.
Like people generally hate Congress and vote their rep back in. So
That's the truth, isn't it? One other thing, I do not have a complete list of what was submitted, I guess. I just have a few questions here on my thing. That's fine. You guys are picking out the ones you like.
That was the complete list of
This
the
was it,
questions.
but
That was
bike
it.
lanes are not on it, or.
yeah, they are. What, it's this page.
Wait, what are you looking, just that first page 87 and 88 of the board packet?
I have these additional questions.
Also on the.
The other side has,
Okay, very good. All right, so are we gonna assume that people know what market rate residential is? We could use another descriptor.
I don't know what's the point
don't
of
know what it
asking
is.
that
What
question?
are we gonna
And
do
I
with
don't know what it
Yeah,
is.
I don't
So,
There's a question in here that says something about market rate
I know.
residential. And
yeah, I would have to answer no, probably if I was being honest. And then I would want to know as a member of the Board of Aldermen, what am I doing with that?
No, I mean, what if there was a phrase in there that it said what it was instead of market rate residential?
But
What is
why,
it?
But what are we gonna do with the information? What's the,
We'll understand the question and be able to answer it better. What is the question that has that in it?
so are you saying there's a question in here that talks about market rate residential? Oh, I didn't realize that.
understand, yes.
I thought you literally wanted to
I
find
think
out
it
how
might-
many of
my
our
email, I
residents
might have
know
referred to
that.
the question,
And I was like,
but
are we trying to make people feel stupid?
I think I referred to the question in my email, but I don't have that with me and
No, it's under question 22. And so the question was originally put in here to gauge interest in incentives.
Right.
And so market rate residential
Oh.
was added there with downtown high density.
so what is market rate residential?
That's just regularly priced apartments in a high-rise building.
So I mean, I just think, should we just say?
It's
that?
it's housing that doesn't have a reduced or subsidized rate. Right.
Yeah.
That's it's
Get it.
confusing though. Is that an ad? Or has that always been there?
That's a question we've had in there.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. I just thought people don't know what that is. I don't know what it is. Or I didn't.
in the context of the question,
Makes more.
I would be able to answer it.
It's a post 212 question that was added.
And again, we want consistency to see trends, so changing
Yep,
stuff. yeah,
okay,
be careful.
never mind. And then my only other thing is I really would love to have something at the end that offers people the opportunity to sign up to receive our email communication.
That
that
will
in here?
be, there's a QR code on the cover letter of
Okay,
the survey.
right, okay, good, perfect. Okay. That everything, everybody? All right, then, Andrea, I hope you have what you need. Thank you very much for all your work on this. All right, I think that concludes our business and it's almost 10, so I doubt that we want to have a round table. Okay, very good. Thank you, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Yep, second.
Can I just say I'm very excited to see the new
Yes.
designation above the chair.
Yes, Andrea, good job.
Matt,
Very
Matt
nice.
built it.
Matt,
Yeah.
Matt, you built it?
Matt-
Wow,
very
very nice job. Okay. Very good. Well done.
That's great.
We finally have something, for Pete's sake. Okay,
Very
all right.
exciting.
Okay, gang.
Thank you. It's a circle instead of like a ring instead of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I need for that.